several houses within the Ogu district. Damage took place there. Where we are right now, under the Umkongondlovu district, a lot of damage has taken place, but our teams are on the ground. In terms of the roads, we can indicate that yesterday in the afternoon to the evening, a number of major routes were opened. The N2 between Kokstad and Port Shepstone, the R617 as well. Motorists, though, are urged along the R617 to continue to be cautious as that road is still slippery.
The Maluti Apofong municipality in the Free State says it has procured additional transformers to mitigate the effects of winter. The 37 transformers are aimed at tackling the rise in electricity consumption and reduce the number of power outages during the cold season. Municipal Manager Mutsuhaya Mufukeng has also urged the residents to pay for services rendered by the municipality and to stop with illegal connections.
We have actually invited Eskom to come and collaborate with us, particularly on the issue of provision of electricity in this winter period, because that is where we have identified that there is another problem. Another problem is all of. But you see, our people as well should not play victims, because most of our people in Maluti Apofong, they're stealing electricity, and it's a serious problem because we are getting electricity not for free from Eskom. There is cost attached to the provision of electricity.
The National Assembly is sitting this afternoon to consider the fiscal framework and revenue proposals, which contains the general fuel levy increase. The fuel levy hike proposal was made by the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana when he tabled the budget in Parliament last month. The majority of members of the Standing Committee on Finance voted in support of the report containing the general fuel levy increase, paving way for it to be implemented. The NPA in Gauteng says it will oppose bail for the man accused of the murder of 14-year-old Likhona Fose. 39-year-old Mdudu Zimnisi appeared briefly in the Roodepoort Magistrate Court west of Johannesburg today. His case will resume on Thursday next week, where he is expected to bring a bail application. Fose's mutilated body was discovered in bushes not far from her home in Durban Deep in Roodepoort. Gauteng NPA spokesperson Pindim Jonondwane.
The matter has been remanded for the state to gather evidence in respect of the bail application that the accused wants to bring before court. He is charged with a premeditated murder, which falls under offences within the ambit of Schedule 6. As the NPA, we will be opposing his release on bail.
The Sudanese army says it has retreated from the Libya-Egypt-Sudan border triangle area. The section is now under the control of the paramilitary Rapid Supporters Forces. The army yesterday accused troops loyal to Eastern Libyan military commander Khalifa Haftar of carrying out an attack alongside the RSF. Haftar's force denied participating in a cross-border attack. The BBC's Will Ross has the details.
This is a big setback for the Sudanese army. It had been using former rebels from Darfur to help it protect the border with Libya. But following fighting this week, they've now withdrawn and the army's rival, the Rapid Support Forces, control the border triangle. This means it'll be far easier for the RSF to bring in weapons via Libya and link up with the Libyan military commander Khalifa Haftar's forces. The Sudanese army says the United Arab Emirates is behind all this. Despite denials from Abu Dhabi, there's strong evidence that the UAE has backed the RSF and Khalifa Haftar's forces.
Recapping the top story, KwaZulu-Natal Cogta Department says disaster management teams are on the ground assessing damage caused by the inclement weather conditions that have affected large parts of the province. I'm Mondela for SFM News Headlines at 3:30.
In sports this hour, Rabada destroys Australia's top order in World Test Championship final. Chippa United have appointed Sinetemba Badela as their new head coach, and Azuri suffer injury blow for Buck Duels. More details at 3:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
The land is their legacy, but in season 3 of Yellowstone, that legacy is under fire. Kevin Costner returns as John Dutton, fighting to protect his ranch, his family, and everything that can't be bought. More enemies, deeper betrayal, and the battle for the West, it's only just begun. Yellowstone Season 3. This land was won with blood, and it'll take more to keep it. Saturdays at 9:30. Starts 24 May, only on S3. Open up.
In business, timing is everything. The right moment to expand, invest, or move forward won't wait. So why should you? With Standard Bank's business lending solutions, you get access to the funding you need when you need it. Get a business revolving loan for quick cash flow, a business term loan to scale up, a business credit card for day-to-day expenses, property finance to secure the perfect space, or commercial asset finance to invest in the right tools. Keep your business growing with our business lending solutions. Visit standardbank.co.za/business loans to apply. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what youth-focused issues the G20 should incorporate ahead of the summit. And we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So I was away for a day, and I know that Kathy sort of held the fort, and that's great. But I'm back. I'm back on the National Pulse, and so are you, of course, because you never go away. And you know the story. If you want to be on the pulse, then you have to tune in to the National Pulse, and that's why you're here. So much appreciate your support as we do the show every day, 3 to 6. In fact, where I was is two things. I was emceeing and moderating the Momentum, effectively business in women event. Okay, that looks at just how women in sport can effectively grow their revenues from sport. So that's the one thing. And then later on last night, I attended the book launch of Zibusiso Mkhwanazi. You know, he's the founder of the Avatar Agency. He's written a book. And I must just tell you, I mean, besides the fact that he's certainly one of the brightest people I've met in my life, and he knows that because I've told him that, just the crowd last night, about 400, 500 people, I think, in freezing cold weather, all there to pay tribute to a person who is very much at the top of his game in business, and that's fabulous, but also making the point of linking his business to his faith. Now, if you follow his story, well, he's very much a staunch follower of the Christian faith. He practices it in all that he does, and therefore, links what we talk about when we talk about business to grace, and making that combination all the time. But also, just as we sort of ended the book launch, I was privileged to meet quite a few people who listened to the show, which is just great. So I love it, because I know often people say, we saw you in such and such a place and we didn't know whether we can come up to you. Of course you can come up to me. I'm like, what is this nonsense of having divisions here in the world? Like you have to knock on a door that you can't even see. No, listen, man, we chilled. It's great to engage with you, and I certainly love to connect with people that make up the National Pulse. So next time you're around, please come up and say hi to me. Right, how do you connect? 086 000 2032 if you're going to call in live, and then you can WhatsApp 0614 104 107, and you know that, text or voice note. If you're voice noting, it's going to be 30 seconds maximum, so keep it tight. You also have the option to tweet us, and if you're doing that, it's hashtag the National Pulse. Do use that hashtag, and then do tag SFM Radio, and do tag me, Ashraf Garda. We're going to talk shortly regarding the president's announcement last night. This while I was at this book launch, the announcement of the eminent persons group that will make up and guide this all-important national dialogue. So we will connect to Ella Gandhi soon enough. But there are other issues that you may want to raise right away in terms of issues we'll talk about. We'll talk about the Global Watch. Did you see Elon Musk apologizing? Did you see that apology and what that really means? And the other issues in the USA. So we'll touch on that with John Stremlau too. And in fact, what I'm going to do is just, now that I mentioned Elon Musk and it just shows like, and what's happening in the USA, Let's talk about that right away. So we're going to flip things around. So with me now is Dr. John Stramlau, who's the visiting professor of international relations at Wits University. Dr. Stramlau, good to connect with you as always on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I tell you what, I was perhaps as surprised as many others, and I'm not too sure whether you were surprised, where we saw a tweet from Elon Musk suggesting that perhaps he went too far in his tweets, referring to Donald Trump the other day. Now, I mean, how seriously do we take that?
Well, it was today, so in this relationship of school bullies fighting one another, I don't know what to predict, but the response from Trump is he's just too busy with the conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East and Los Angeles, and so he doesn't have any regrets about Elon Musk, but maybe over time it will resolve itself. But Elon Musk has got a pledge that he won't fund anti-Trump candidates and in the upcoming congressional elections next year. And SpaceX holds $22 billion in federal contracts that are at risk. So he's got an incentive to not only that, but I mean Tesla and other contracts that he's got with the federal government, and so it's in their interest to overcome this. But the step was taken by Musk today in his tweet on X.
But that leads me to think about what many have suggested like a week ago, to say, Ashraf, this is all nonsense, man. This is one big charade. These are two heavyweight champion friends maneuvering one for the other to try and do what's good for themselves, and even their fallout is really just part of a charade for greater gain. What it is, I don't quite understand. I mean, is that a thought that you may have considered?
Well, of course, but everything with Trump is phony, and taco tariffs. Trump chickens out again. He's past master of providing distractions, and his deployment of Marines and federal troops, our National Guard, to California without checking with Governor Newsom is symptomatic of this. He's got his eye on 2026, and he knows that immigration is a popular issue with his base, and with many other Americans who voted for him in 2024. So he's going to go ahead and pump that one up. But it's scurrilous and reckless of him. But he doesn't, he talks a good game about the rule of law, but he doesn't abide by the rule of law at all. And he lines his pockets while as president, charging everybody, including the cryptocurrency that he's started. It's really unseemly, but the Americans have yet to rally around, but we'll see what happens in 2026, next year.
Okay, so what would you be looking for next in that relationship, holy or unholy, between Trump and Elon Musk?
Well, I don't know. Trump is so unpredictable. But Musk has important interests at stake, I alluded to earlier, and Trump would not like to see him fund critics of Trump in the 2026 election, congressional election. He needs to have the Republican majority in the Congress, so that he can be protected against impeachments that would certainly come at least by the Congress if it goes Democratic.
Okay,
so they both have stakes.
Okay, let's talk about the other issue in the USA regarding what we saw. Let's call it protests, riots, vandalism, depends who you talk to, regarding mainly immigrants in Los Angeles. Tell me about that.
Well, that's again a distraction. Trump has his eyes on the 2026 elections and wants to take this national. But with the blue state, for the blue state, California, he figures that's a good game to play. And I thought that Governor Newsom responded very, very well in condemning his escalation. And yet anti-immigration is a popular issue that the Democrats don't seem to have the voice to counter. But Newsom did a great job in condemning Trump's escalation, and that's, I think, to the good. And maybe he'll be a national candidate.
And what do you make of the causes of this outpouring on the streets of LA?
Well, you're seeing this in other metropolitan areas. People are very critical of the anti-immigration policies that are taking. ICE has got a target of 3,000 people to round up every day, and that's obscene because a lot of these people have not been vetted, and they've already made mistakes in exporting. Immigrants who should have been at least subject to due process in the U.S., but also legitimate citizens.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Lots to consider coming out of that conversation. Dr. John Stremlau, visiting professor of international relations at WITS. I think the issue, as Stremlau has made often enough, is like when it comes to Trump in particular, you never know what's going to happen next. In fact, when it comes to Trump and Elon Musk nowadays, in particular, you never really know what's going to happen next. And they call South Africa unpredictable. It's a strange world we live in. This is the National Pulse. Let's hear from you as well. We'll chat to Ella Gandhi right after this.
Welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of St. Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. S3, open up.
Specsavers Audiology, South Africa's largest audiology group, brings you the all-new Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aids. Experience cutting-edge features at a price you can afford. For a limited time only, buy one Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right, buy one and get 50% off the second. Visit specsavers.co.za to find your nearest store and ask for Clarity Pro today. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
This week on BBC Primetime, watching TV could make you a winner. It's the BBC Primetime Watch and Win competition. Just tune into your BBC Primetime shows, answer a few simple questions on S3's TikTok account, and you could walk away with awesome prizes. From thrilling dramas to jaw-dropping reality shows, the more you watch, the more chances you have to win. Watch, answer, win. Only on BBC Primetime. Airs weeknights 9 to 11 p.m. on S3. Your couch just became the best seat in the game.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Now, you can apply online for ABSA Ultimate Banking with 34 benefits while listening to the show. This is what ultimate success looks like. It's getting your daughter the ballet shoes you promised thanks to a 2,000 Rand balance booster. With Ultimate Goals is living life on your own terms with a 0 monthly fee credit card. ABSA Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rands per month. Your story matters. ABSA. Subject to affordability and scoring. Benefits may be subject to limitations. Terms and conditions apply. ABSA is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So in the midst of the book launch that I attended last night, that's Zibusiso Mkonazi's book launch, there we find confirmation of the announcement of the eminent persons that will guide and champion the national dialogue, as announced by President Ramaphosa. And I think he did use the same sort of tone, if I recollect yesterday, to the type of tone that he expressed when he spoke around that period around COVID-19 and he had his regular family meetings, isn't it? So let's find out more about it. So two things. This national dialogue, to guide it, to drive it as one. But the important part as well is who are the people that has made up these the eminent persons group and what happens next. So one of the people is Ella Gandhi, who's the chairperson of the Gandhi Development Trust and Phoenix Settlement Trust. Much appreciate your time here on the National Pulse, Ella.
Thank you so much, Ashraf. Yeah.
Thank you. So
Good
first of
to
all,
be on your program.
much appreciated. So, I mean, you're one of the people, and it's interesting. I don't have to say it, but I'm reading exactly what it says. You're part of this eminent persons group. So the thought is there are 30 people who are eminent and therefore must help the cause of the country. How do you see it?
Firstly, I'm honored and humbled at the appointment, my particular appointment. But when I see the group, I see that it's a very inclusive group. He's chosen people from all sectors, of society, young and old, all the different race groups, all the different sectors, sports, education, religious sector, and so on, which is what we really need. We need inclusivity. And for me, the dialogue is an important part of South Africa's history in order to look at how we can bring everybody's voices onto the table and then chart out a way to deal with the problems that the community is facing.
So what then is your understanding of, when you were approached, what is the brief given to you, and linked to that is then, therefore, what is your understanding of what's expected of you and what would be the ultimate outcome of this national dialogue?
Well, when I was given the brief, I wasn't told exactly what is expected of me. I was just asked whether I would agree to serve on the eminent persons group and help the president with the organizing of this dialogue.
So
broadly speaking, that was the brief.
All right.
But whether we are supposed to mobilize, recruit, help him to decide who should be invited, what should be the program, I'm not sure. Those are details I think that would be worked out when we are called together.
Okay. And therefore, in terms of the little bit you know now, could this be just the build-up to an actual dialogue, or do you expect that your commitment will be like throughout the year?
I think that it would be a build-up to the actual dialogue, but what most people are saying, and what I personally see as well, the problem is not in the kind of policies we have the kind of laws we have, because, we've got one of the best constitutions in the world. We've got very good policies on everything, and yet, when it comes to delivery, we are suffering at every level. So it's in the implementation that, we would be required, I think, not just the eminent people, but I think the whole society would be, we would need civil society to be involved in order to see that delivery actually takes place.
Interesting you talk about civil society. I think there's been a few criticisms of the 30 names mentioned, and in broad speak amongst the criticisms were that, yes, many people are from civil society, but they are, and it's the criticism, so it's not necessarily targeted to you, okay, that in fact they are in some way or the other partisan to the president or to the ruling party. Well, I say ruling party, maybe I shouldn't say that anymore, to the ANC. They partisan in some way or the other to that, and that by and large, outside the religious leaders, reflects the 30 people that are part of this eminent persons group.
I'm not so sure that is true, because I am non-partisan, although I stood for election, or rather I was elected as part of the ANC group. But now I'm working with the Phoenix Settlement and, Gandhi Development Trust. And so we can't say that we are actually, partisan in that respect. But then there are other people like, Rolf Meyer. I don't think Rolf Meyer is an ANC member. He was in the Democratic Party. I don't know. I don't think that they are people in the group that belong to one party.
I mean, I hear somebody talk about Rolf Meyer as someone who's worked with Ramaphosa at the time when they negotiated the settlement for South Africa. Anyway, but fine. Let's move beyond that. What then are your thoughts? Because clearly, is there a need for a national dialogue? And I ask that question because some may ask, well, then what is the purpose of the political parties in Parliament that we voted for on May 29th of last year? What would be different from the national dialogue versus the other daily dialogue that happens in Parliament?
Well, two things for me. Number one is that it's taking people from the ground to have this dialogue. It's not addressing the dialogue to the leadership. So it's people from the ground who the dialogue will be with. So that's the one thing. The second thing is inclusivity, South African, reflecting the broad South African community. And I think that, if we look at discussions within parties, then the parties come with their own, different outlooks and also aspirations. They come with the idea that they want to win votes rather than, just looking at how can we improve the South African condition. Whereas this dialogue, I think, I'm not saying that as the conclusive idea from this, from what the president has said, but to me it would appear that he wants to talk to people, just general public, and he doesn't, want anything else to be included in their, political agenda or something.
Okay, well,
and I'm hoping that is because I think that if that is the reasoning behind this dialogue, then I think it's a wonderful thing.
Okay.
It's an opportunity for general people to be heard at this dialogue. And I think, for myself, I'm consulting with the groups that I belong to. And I want them to tell me what do they expect of me.
Okay, well, that's an important part. What do, the ordinary people expect of you, and will they feed in to the eminence person group, will then feed in to the president as part of the national dialogue? Big challenge, I think, and the country needs to get so many things right, as you know. Ella Gandhi, much appreciate your time here, chairperson of the Gandhi Development Trust and the Phoenix Settlement Trust, one of the members of the 30 that have now been, elected, nominated, not nominated, appointed really, to serve as part of the eminent persons group that will guide the national dialogue. Right, let's get the news headlines. It's just gone 3:30.
Thank you, Ashraf, for the news headlines. The chairperson of the Standing Committee on Finance, Dr. Joe Maswanganyi, has defended the decision of the committee to support the adoption of the fiscal framework and revenue proposals that contain a general fuel levy increase. KwaZulu-Natal Cocta Department says disaster management teams are on the ground assessing damage caused by the inclement weather conditions that have affected large parts of the province, and the United Nations says that there are nearly 138 million children working worldwide. I have an update for us at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in Braamfontein is heavy traffic reported towards Crown Interchange. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and Govan Becky Road eastbound in Khayelitsha slow moving at Sheffield Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
To me, I think there's a wicket.
Is there a wicket now?
I think there's a
there
wicket.
Is a wicket.
Yeah. And they should cross to us every day if that's the case.
And it's a big one. It's of Steve Smith. Well, we're talking about the Proteas, and they're facing Australia at the World Test Championship final. It's actually a wicket. Australia right now are sitting on 146 for 5. So it's been a good day in the office, basically, for the Proteas, because just before lunch, they reduced Australia to 67 for 4 at lunch. And obviously, it's day one. The Proteas had won the toss, and they chose to bowl first at Lords. Kagiso Rabada dismissing Khawaja for 20 ball duck, and Cameron Green in the same over with Marco Jansen dismissing Marnus Labuschagne or Labuschagne and Travis Head. Now, I was going to say that Steve Smith, on the other hand, has passed 50. Now he's out at 66. And that is a big one, obviously, for South Africa.
Big one. And I mean, Jansen fumbled the ball 3 times before he caught it in the slips.
Sure.
So he was trying to do a circus sort of juggling, but whatever it is, it worked. And they had to break that partnership, right? Because it was becoming very ominous.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, congratulations to the Proteas. We'll see how that one goes. But one thing that Captain Themba Bavuma has been saying is that his boys don't need any motivation, as having making it to the stage should do enough to fire them up.
So I think from a motivation point of view, there's not much that I can do. I think if players needed to be motivated, then that would be a problem. I think now it's maybe just getting down to the fact that we actually need to play the game. Let's play what is in front of us. Let's not get caught up into too much of the story and what could be, and just be ready for what's to come. We accept and understand that it's going to be tough against the Australians. The guys who played against them know. And look, I mean, they've been good times, they've been bad times, and we need to feed off all those good times. So, I think time for the emotions and the stories and all of that is to put it behind us and really be ready to play what's in front of us.
That score update again, Australia now sitting on 146 for 5. We'll keep you up to date with the score there. But also, there's some football action on the go. The 2024-25 promotion playoffs, which is officially underway, with Orbit College clashing with Keswick Stars. And the last time I checked, the game was 35 minutes in, and it still remains goalless. Meanwhile, Chippa United have announced Sinethemba Badela as the club's head coach. This is for the 2025-26 Betway Premiership Championship season. The club has not given clarity with regards to the future of former head coaches Thabo September and Mabuti Kanyeza, except to say that the full technical team would be announced in due course. And this marks Badela's first appointment as head coach in top flight football, following his previous experience in South Africa's first division and also being assistant coach at Wydad Athletic. Then Mamelodi Sundowns goalkeeper Ronald Williams says there is no time to feel sorry for themselves. This is after missing out on the CAF Champions League, especially now that they're gearing up for the FIFA Club World Cup.
I think the most important was to reflect. Immediately after the game, we had our chat. But then after that, it was also important just to stay away from each other. I mean, we've played so many games this season. We've played so much soccer, and we've traveled so much as well. So this 5 days away from each other, also just to re-energize again and get that spark back. And obviously, it was devastating. It was hard to accept that defeat. But we have to go again. You know, at Mamelodi Sundowns, there's always another opportunity, and there's no bigger than this. And we can't be mourning for too long. This is massive. That's probably the biggest club competition. So we're excited. We're looking forward to it. And like I said, when I saw the training today, you could see, the energy is back, the spark is back, and that 5 days done as well.
All right, the Brazilians get their FIFA Club World Cup campaign underway on Wednesday, the 18th of June at midnight. They take on Alsan. In rugby, Italy have been hit with a blow with the news that Ange Capozzo is sidelined with a broken leg, and he is unlikely to feature in the 2-test tour against the Springboks. The Boks kick off the 2025 test season against the Zuri at Loftus Versfeld on the 5th of July. Italy's first visit to South Africa since 2013, before the teams meet again 1 week later at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium, where they last crossed paths in 2001. In tennis, female tennis players who wish to freeze their eggs or embryos so that they can start a family at a later date will have their ranking protected by the Women's Tennis Association Tour, and the offer is open to any player ranked in the world's top 750 who spends more than 10 weeks out of competition. 2017 US Open champion Sloane Stephens says that the rule will reduce the pressure on players to return to the court too quickly. And I'm loving how slowly but surely the world is starting to accommodate women, female athletes to be specific, and just noting that the female body versus the male body is completely different, and there's a lot of things to put into consideration. Like now, if you're going to be a tennis player giving birth, obviously you need to give yourself enough time so that you can go back. But they're just saying, still nurse your kid. Don't worry about your ranking. We got you.
Well, good point. I must tell you, I was not here yesterday, primarily because of that reason. There was this Momentum Women in Sport conference, workshop ahead of the summit in August. And it's all those type of things. Women need and want to assert themselves even more, not just in terms of parity of remuneration or sponsorship, but also all the other anomalies that they face, like you've just made the point about, giving birth. What happens to that? Does that come into consideration, or is that ignored? So, there's a women's march on the go in sport, and I think it's very important, and you would appreciate that.
It's always great to see women in leadership and also just bringing in some of those changes. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
As the cost of living rises, from school fees to the price of cereal, you can take comfort in knowing that with Outsurance, you could save big on your car insurance. Savings that could make a real difference to your budget every month. Outsurance client Mikey knows all about it.
These guys are super fast, they're very helpful. My bank account is flexing.
Why wait? Switch and save today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is all about giving you value for your money. Enjoy life-saving services like Help It Out, with 24/7 access to panic assistance, roadside assistance, and home assistance with just a tap on the app.
Feel good. That means that I'm being looked after.
Make today the day you switch. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. Limits apply. T's and C's online.
Can one word unlock eternal glory? Okay, maybe just a shiny trophy and bragging rights. It's Password US, Hosted by the king of chaos himself, Jimmy Fallon. Celebrities try to guess words. Hilarity ensues. Logic? Optional. Laughter guaranteed. Password US, where saying the right word might win the game, but saying the wrong one is way more fun. Password US, Saturdays 7:30 on S3. Say it like you mean it, or don't. We're not judging.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, we're going to take your calls shortly because you're on the Pulse, aren't you? So I need to hear from you. You and I need to be connected to the umbilical cord that is the National Pulse, right? Okay, so in the meantime, before we get to the calls, you may comment about what's happening in the USA. Elon Musk suggesting maybe perhaps I went too far with my tweets. Can you believe it? Or my axes, whatever he may have said. And then the issue of the national dialogue. You must have an opinion on it. You must have an opinion of the process of the national dialogue, as well as the 30 people that have been appointed there. One person who I think is not there is Dr. Padi Lahotla. You may question why, but that's not for me to debate. He's the former statistician general, and we're going to talk to him now about unemployment numbers. Padi, as always, appreciate your time with the National Pulse.
How are you, Ashraf, and how are you, listeners?
Good to connect with you. So let's get this. I mean, so yesterday I wasn't here, but I noticed that the Capitec CEO Harry Fourie, he's called on South Africa to, rethink how we get our numbers right with regard to unemployment, the metric, right? And he's suggesting, therefore, and this is critical, that the number that we currently look at, and perhaps you would have done the same when you were the Statistician General, is 32.9%. And he says when you factor in the informal sector and the jobs they do, in reality, the unemployment rate is closer to only just 10%, which is like glory time for South Africa, relatively. What do you make of it?
Would you like to believe that, Ashraf, that South Africa is a 10% unemployment rate? You must be falling from the moon. I mean, when a random businessman comes and dabbles in systems that he doesn't understand, it's tragic, especially a successful businessman like himself, who actually feeds off the money of blacks, who suffer this high unemployment rate of 32%, of 40 expanded unemployment. Whites, only 7% unemployment. Perhaps he's talking about whites. He's really out of touch. The Statistics Office, in collaboration with all other statistics offices of the world, describe and prescribe these measures. They are scientifically determined. And he cannot, as a random businessman, come and dabble into this United Nations body of expertise that works on these numbers.
So
these numbers we have been calculating from 2008, when we went into a quarterly labor force survey, having run from 2000, when we had this labor force survey twice a year. And I don't know where the hell he drops from.
Well, look, specifically, but I mean,
just like Loan Sharp of Adcop, who had come with a similar kind of madness, dabbling in the numbers that they don't understand.
All right, but now let me pick up this, right? I mean, specifically, and I'm going to quote him because he's zoning in on the informal sector. So this is what he said. What is interesting is when you look at the unemployment rate, we talk about 32%. But Stats SA doesn't count self-employed people. I really think that is an area we must correct. The unemployment rate is probably actually 10%. Just go look at the number of people.
I don't see.
Let me finish. Just go look at the number of people in the township. Okay, look at the number of people in the township informal market who are selling all sorts of stuff, who have a turnover of 1,000 rands a day, Fourie said. Now, here's the point. And you would know from your experience before and even now, when people are in this informal sector, maybe buying an apple for a rand and selling it for 1 rand 50, but doing it, in the moment like a piece job thing, are they considered unemployed or employed?
Well, you see, this is where this random businessman comes in without actually understanding the methods and the systems. The labor force survey asks of every individual in the household, whether they are employed or unemployed, whether they are self-employed, they go into a detailed map of what the activities are that these people engage in, including working for 1 day a week. So I think we need to be given a break. That people just come and talk through their necks on matters as severe and profound as this, where up to 60% of the young people are not employed, and we are told that we have not covered them.
So what is your definition of who's employed? I mean, what is your understanding?
An unemployed person is a person who is in the age group of 15 to 64, who has been actively looking for work. And by work, we mean any work that, including self-employment, like selling, like collecting something, like even 2 hours, 3 hours, or a day in a week. It includes those people that he's talking about. This is what we measure.
So
and for him to come and imagine that we haven't measured those, that's madness.
Okay, so for the record, so we're very clear, you're saying this group of people who are working in the informal sector, doing odd jobs, earning, up to 500, sometimes 1,000 rand a day, but on their own, effectively, he's saying that they are considered unemployed. You saying, in fact,
he is lying. He's lying, He's lying, Ashraf. He's lying. That's the only definition we can give, that those people are excluded. He's lying. He doesn't know the methods.
What would be his motive for lying, as opposed to maybe not knowing the methods?
I don't know. You have to go and check his head. He's a big businessman, raking money from blacks and arguing that they are employed, when actually they are unemployed. This is, a moral dilemma that we have in this country, of people who 73% of them are on the top quintile against 13% of blacks. This is the moral dilemma of people who have no empathy for blacks.
Why do I get a sense, Party, that, and you commentate on these issues just about every day on some platform or the other, that in this case, I think you are particularly upset about it, more so than any other time.
I'm upset about it because Minister Tau says, in fact, this white man is talking something sensible when he's talking nonsense. And then we have a politician supporting this, who is in government, who has a statistician general by his elbow. Why didn't he ask rather to come and be a chorister to this nonsense?
Well, okay.
This is, as I say, it works with the statistics offices across the world. It measures unemployment. This is documented in the documents of StatsSA. Now, a random businessman comes and lies about what he's done. He's just like Loan Sharp. Loan Sharp did the same. I had to scalp his head.
All right, we're gonna invite the random businessman and get his views to explain himself a lot more. Maybe even StatsSA as well. I know you've been a part of it before, right? Just the last thing. But so as it stands, this random businessman, I'm looking at the lowly newspaperman who's no more the editor of the City Press, because that's the phrase he would normally use, and many would know what I'm talking about, right? But the random businessman, his comments then effectively being supported by someone of the stature of Park Tau. You think that support is problematic because of Tau's position in government, and what would be the implications thereof?
It irritates me because government and states establish something called statistics offices. They depend on those numbers for planning. It shows the ignorance that Tau has on the wealth of data that is there. I've said a number of times, Ashraf, that these people don't read the numbers. And then they become choristers to random businessmen that come and lie. This is the dilemma. And that is why I'm so irritated that we are talking about a national dialogue. If this national dialogue is going to listen to random business people and not look at the fact find of the nation and their statistics, which they have not looked at anyway, if they continue like that, this national dialogue will be a circus.
Okay, let's.
And in fact, it has the ingredients of a circus because these people, the politicians, including the president, don't look at these numbers. He look at the yes numbers and say we have created 2 million job opportunities that do not show in the numbers of the statistician general.
Just pause on that. I want to pick up.
Chorus that is irritating.
All right, just pause on that. I'll find out why you're calling the national dialogue a circus. We shall do that right after this.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The reigning champions Banyana Banyana and 11 African national teams are ready to tackle each other for WAFCON 2024 to determine who are the real queens of the continent. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Experience the Women Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024 from 5 to 26 July 2025. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 1 and SABC 2. Also available on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
This Youth Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit, power, and potential of young South Africans. Join us as we dive into conversations that matter, from innovation to education and skills for the changing world, empowering youth for meaningful economic participation. Because at SAFM, we're not just talking, we're leading the conversations that move us.
Right, Party Lahotla Part 2 in just a few seconds, right? Now you can apply online for Absa Ultimate Banking with 34 benefits while listening to this show. Now, this is what ultimate success looks like. It's getting your daughter the ballet shoes you promised thanks to a 2,000 Rand balance booster, while ultimate goals is living life on your own terms with a zero monthly fee credit card. Absa Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rands per month. Your story matters. Absa. Subject to affordability and scoring. Benefits may be subject to limitations. Terms and conditions apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's just conclude our conversation with Dr. Party Lahotla. Right, Party, so I had a chat with Alagandi just before we spoke to you, in fact. So you're describing this national dialogue as well, maybe a national circus. You just said circus. I'm using the word national. Why would you call it a circus?
I'm not saying it is a circus. I'm saying it will be a circus.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a random businessman opining on numbers that he knows very little of, and that being supported by a minister holding such an important portfolio of industrialization. If both these people, who are highly regarded in the country, have no clue about national numbers, then who should? And then the president looking at the yes numbers and says we are having 2 million job opportunities, and those numbers don't appear in the report of the statistician general. Then when we don't have seriousness around the national numbers at that level, then we are running a circus when we go to a national dialogue.
Point taken. What do you think, however, of the concept of the national dialogue?
A national dialogue is necessary. I said that it should be held before the elections for reasons that I knew that once people have been elected and they are in power, they'll say, bring the Bible, we sign for power. And then all the discussions will be done under our guise, now in power. And that's where we are now. Had we had a national dialogue before the national election over a period of 6 months, we will have defined who has to go into political power. And those who would appear before that mirror will say whether they are fit or not fit. Now we are burdened with a national dialogue that has to be a mirror of people who have been elected. What if we found them unworthy? What do? We are stuck. The national dialogue may well have to say, if they are not fit for purpose, those who are in power now and ruling, then we have to call a national election. And we would have avoided that kind of situation if we looked at the national dialogue before that, because those who would have elected in power, they'll have passed what the national dialogue will have defined as responsible leadership and responsible leaders.
Okay, last thing.
Now we are going to redefine this thing after the fact.
Okay, last thing I noted on my quick stretch to the 30 names or so that the name Party Hotla is missing from there. I take it you were not invited, but if you were invited to serve as one of those eminent persons, what would you have said?
Well, I am a person who provides public statistics. And I think I would be heavily compromised to be in that kind of situation. Even if I were to be invited, I would have said, I think leave me with the space of public numbers so that I can comment freely, rather than be constrained by these strenuous responsibilities that will govern the 30 people.
Okay, and comment freely is exactly
that
what...
would have been a serious constraint on my independent thought around, especially driven by the facts of the nation and given the paucity of understanding of these numbers.
And
I think I operate in a space that gives me the latitude to make a contribution
and
that I'm qualified to do, and I've done it probably very well.
And you've done that, certainly, and with the latitude as expressed here on the National Pulse. So perhaps I would think, I may echo the views of the audience, right or wrong, more of the same. We need to hear Party Hotla. Thanks for your time. As always, much appreciated. Former Statistician General, always wears a football top wherever you see him, no matter which one. Could be Bafana or Mamelodi Sundowns, but the reality, he's got his mind on the biggest issues in the country, more than just football, because it is more than a game, isn't it? Party, thanks for your time. We'll get some of your thoughts in a moment.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Right, let's see if we can get some of your calls. From Zila in Humansdorp. Go for it. Hello.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm very good indeed. Right, what's your point?
Great, man. Ashraf, I just want to convey my deepest and sincere, heartfelt condolences to the families that have lost these young kids at the bus. They were going or coming from, I think, going to school. It's very tragic, it's very touching, and to lose such young souls, people to whom I believe they would have been contributing to the economy of the country, as they grow up. And equally, I think it's important to convey my gratitude to the Honorable Premier, Oscar Mabuyane, and his team and relevant mayors to have actually responded so promptly to visit the actual place of the incident, and my heart goes to those parents, and because it's not an easy thing really to lose a young soul,
Well, anybody, I think young or old, but in all cases, it's human life that we refer to. So your point is taken. It's another horrible story, and we hear. This is regarding flooding. The other day we had the story about the fires in the Brixton, Mayfair West area in Joburg, and these are just terrible stories to hear. Pumzile, thank you for that call. Let's get another quick thought from Bloemfontein. We go. Here's Magdalene. Hi, Magdalene.
Afternoon, Ashraf and the listeners. Ashraf, the point of the national dialogue to me is just a formality, because if ever the president had the interest to the needs of the South Africans. We made it clear with our votes last year. So he could have made it from that time. But for the fact that nobody from the leadership of ANC is highly interested to can meet or execute according to the needs of the South Africans, this thing is not going to work at all. The only thing that we should do as South Africans, we should just tell ANC and the leadership that you failed us, South Africans, so we need to change our access. That's all that I'm going to say.
But honestly, no political party is going to try and walk themselves or vote themselves out of power. They're just not going to do that anywhere.
We are going to tell them.
Well, I'm talking about the party, not about you. Magdalene, thanks for that. Thanks for that call and that comment. Certainly gets me thinking, as I think it should get you thinking. Let's get the news now. It's 4:00. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, National Assembly debates the fiscal framework proposal and deadline to end child labour by 2025 missed. For SAFM News, I am Ondalambana, and a very good afternoon. The chairperson of the Standing Committee on Finance, Dr. Joe Maswanganyi, has defended the decision of the committee to support the adoption of the fiscal framework and revenue proposals that contain a general fuel levy increase. The National Assembly is debating the committee's report, which was voted by the majority of members. Last month, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana tabled a budget that proposes a general fuel levy hike of 16 and 15 cents per litre for petrol and diesel, respectively. Maswanganyi elaborates.
Honourable Speaker, let us adopt this budget to build an inclusive economy, heal our country from racial divisions, fight unemployment, poverty and inequality, and create opportunities for all.
The KwaZulu-Natal Cocta Department says 80 households have been affected by recent damaging strong winds and snowfall. The department has reported that about 68 schools across 9 districts sustained damage. The Ugu district on the south coast is the hardest hit, accounting for 38 schools. The department spokesperson Senzelo Mzila says mop-up operations are continuing.
The MEC for Cocta is working closely with line functioning departments to ensure that relief is provided to communities that have been affected. The MEC is also working closely with departments such as education to ensure that assessments are done and completed as quickly as possible.
Police Union SAPU in the Northern Cape says more still needs to be done to reduce incidents of contact crime, especially murder and rape in the province. The union was responding to the release of the fourth quarter crime statistics by Commissioner Koliswa Utola. Utola says they have recorded an increase in murder and sexual offences, including rape. Provincial SAPU Secretary Sabata Chabedi says they are still concerned about the cases of gender-based violence, kidnappings and rape.
We therefore urge the government, faith-based organization, civil society and all other stakeholders to join hands so that we ensure that we strengthen the substance abuse awareness, ensure that rehabilitation centers are effective.
The United Nations says that there are nearly 138 million children working worldwide. UNICEF and the International Labour Organization say that despite progress, a deadline to end child labour by 2025 has been missed. The BBC's Max Harbury reports.
More than 1 in every 12 children works. This represents, the United Nations say, an improvement, but it still means that 138 million children aged between 5 to 17 work. Nearly 40% of those children have been risking their health, working in mines, factories or fields.
Recapping the top story, the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Finance, Dr. Joe Maswanganyi, has defended the decision of the committee to support the adoption of the fiscal framework and revenue proposals that contain a general fuel levy increase. I'm Ondalambana for SFM News. Headlines at 4:30.
In sports, Australia 183 for 5 against the Proteas on day 1 of the World Test Championship final, and Chippa confirmed new coach for 2025-26 season. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Midrand slow moving towards New Road. The M1 southbound in Braamfontein has heavy traffic reported towards Crown Interchange, and the R21 northbound in Tembisa roadworks with traffic restrictions reported between the R25 Babsfontein Road and Olifantsfontein Road. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound slow moving towards Hospital Bend. Mill Street outbound is slow moving towards that M3 highway, and the M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube and X at SAFM Radio.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. that's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
13 Southern African nations and North African guests, Morocco, will battle it out for the ultimate glory in the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025 in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. Catch the beautiful game on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 from 4 to 15 June. Stay tuned to SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
It's a tough day for Mark. Tight deadlines and challenges everywhere. But Mark can rest easy because when he bought his Hino 700 2845 truck tractor, he received a complimentary service plan covering up to 210,000 kilometers for short haul and up to 280,000 kilometers for long haul. Nice one, Mark. Visit your dealer today to find out more about this limited time offer. Hino, all the way. T's and C's apply.
Mzansi, walala wasala. Play Lotto, Lotto Plus 1 and Lotto Plus 2 for a staggering 97 million rand in total estimated jackpots this Wednesday, and you could win big. Play Lotto for an estimated 70 million rand, Lotto Plus 1 for 16 million rand, and Lotto Plus 2 for 11 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
You know, just proof you can never join the show late. I'm being serious about it. In 1 hour, we've not just discussed the cricket in South Africa against the Australians, but also the issue of what's happening in the USA and Elon Musk's, backtracking, sidetracking regarding his tweets, of all things, against Donald Trump, nogal. And then Ila Gandhi talking about this national dialogue, and John Stramler pronouncing on the USA and Trump and what's happening in LA too. And then, of course, Party Lahotla saying things that only Party Lahotla will say. Now, just to pick up on that issue about Parks Tau, let me just pick up something. Of course, he's the minister of, and this is the important part, he's not a caller, he's not you and I either. He's the Minister of Trade and Industry, right? And in relation to the Capitec story of the CEO talking about an unemployment rate of close to 10%, Tau said, and I'm quoting from Times Live, right, that the CEO of Capitec was onto something when he said Stats SA and South African society at large should include the work of those in the informal sector. Now, in briefing Parliament, and I'm going to quote him right directly, he said, "This point has been raised by various other quarters with regard to what we should calculate and what we shouldn't calculate. I have not read the article, but I also hold the view that there is a significant undercount, particularly if you take into account the informal sector. In fact, it's something that we should all collectively be engaging in resolving so we are able to, one, acknowledge the informal sector, but also reinforce the support mechanisms for what is a major contributor to employment in our country." There's more. You can read that piece, and perhaps we'll have further developments on that story, not just now, but even on the shows later on tonight with Songezo. So listen out for that. Okay, let's get to another important issue. The National Assembly, as you know, is debating the revised fiscal framework adopted by the Finance Committee of last week. That's been an ongoing issue, right? So after 2 rejections, a full parliamentary approval for the fiscal fiscal framework is expected today. Now, we picked out some clips, some highlights from various thought leaders within Parliament. One from the EFF's MP, that's Mpile Moatwe, who says the EFF rejects, naturally, the 2025 fiscal framework.
Greetings to the Commander-in-Chief and President of the EFF, Commissars and Fighters. The EFF rejects the 2025 fiscal framework and revenue proposals as tabled by the Minister of Finance and supported by the Standing Committee on Finance, where members of the former liberation movement were led and supervised by the Racist Democratic Alliance. Speaker, we are standing here today for the second time to debate this fiscal framework and revenue proposal because the original report was adopted unprocedurally. We warned you, you ignored us. You allowed the House to adopt the report that was procedurally illegal despite our advice. You allowed a framework that sought to increase VAT from 15% to 15.5%, an increase profusely rejected by almost all political parties except for the ANC, Action SA, and the so-called GNU parties. You allowed a report that places more tax burden on the working class by failing to adjust personal income tax brackets in line with inflation, effectively pushing middle-income earners into higher tax brackets without them anymore in real terms. You, Madam Speaker, presided over a House that adopted the fiscal framework report without any clear statement on whether we accepted or amended the fiscal framework and revenue proposals in violation of Section 6 of the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act, Act 9 of 2009. It took the EFF to approach the Western Cape High Court to stop the VAT increase. If it were not for the EFF, South Africans would already be paying 15.5% VAT today. The people of South Africa know now, without any doubt, that the EFF is the only dependable tool in the hands of the poor and the working class. Now we are presented with a revised fiscal framework. Firstly, the Minister of Finance, having failed to increase VAT, has now imposed an increase in fuel taxes without even bringing a bill to Parliament. This tax is already in effect. It is a violation of the basic constitutional principle that no tax may be imposed without the authority of legislation.
Okay, so that's the EFF position. And remember, they're in opposition, as are the MK party. So Des van Rooyen is an MP within the MK party, former Minister of Finance, remember that? And he addressed young people.
Government, we urge all South Africans, more especially young people, who have lost hope in the country political system because of acts of betrayal like this report. We urge you, go and register so as you can vote in your numbers to take power from his Impimpi and redirect our liberation agenda in the right direction. As MK Party, we reject this report. This report is nothing else but a sellout pact. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, and that's not all, right? There's more. The PA's MP, Ashley Sauls, has an opinion as well. And this is interesting in terms of how, because the PA's position is very different to the other two parties I mentioned earlier. So listen to this.
Greetings in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Ngoinke ahuniki. Proverbs chapter number 27, verse 17. It says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. This budget has tested the GNU to the limit. Many coalition governments like Germany has fell apart because of budget differences. Our GNU is solid. Our government passed its first and hardest test. Those amongst us here that wants the finance minister to be removed, you are living in green and red dreamland. The Minister of Finance is going nowhere. We support you, Honorable Minister. But the opposition is right when they say that the GNU is fighting. The GNU is fighting, but they are not fighting each other. Through this fiscal framework and revenue proposal, it shows that the GNU is not fighting each other. The GNU is fighting poverty. The GNU is fighting unemployment. The GNU is fighting inequality. Whilst they are fighting each other, South Africa, what you saw during this process, South Africa, was not conflict in the GNU. What you saw was friction in the GNU. And the scripture says to us that iron sharpens iron. In order for one iron to sharpen another iron, there has to be friction. So, the next time the opposition wants you to believe there's conflict.
Order. Order, honorable members. I do think that let's be respectful of each other. When order, your members have had an opportunity. Some of the things that you might have said might have irritated others, and some of the things they are saying may irritate you. I think let's just respect each other. Interjections are allowed, but howling and drowning the member on the platform is not allowed. Honourable member, what's your point of order? Order, honourable members. I want to hear the member who wants to raise a point of order.
There we are. You must admit, in the past, the drama in Parliament that is more attractive than being entertained by watching a movie or a Netflix movie or a rugby game or big football or cricket game was essentially vested in the hands of the EFF because they produce the drama. I think it's even more dramatic nowadays. But that point is interesting from Ashley Sauls, that we don't have conflict, we have friction within the GNU. I wonder if you agree. No conflict, but friction. Whatever friction means in relation to conflict, you can work that out. Right, let's get to your opinions on that and a whole lot more, including some of the other comments that's come through from that budget debate. Love to hear from you on the National Pulse. As always, you know that wherever you may be, particularly, and by the way, if you're a first-time caller, I want to give you that shout-out. So on this day where many people are still feeling very, very cold in many parts of the country, if you're up for it, come on. Give us a call, first-time caller, regular caller, whatever your opinions are. And, you know, when you do call in, you effectively brand your own suburb or your village as well, because everybody knows you, and you effectively teach us about your town or village or city or suburb. So, hey, we're helping each other out here on the National Pulse.
After school snacks, a bag of chips or maybe some biscuits, instant noodles for lunch. Ultra-processed products such as these may be high in sugar, salt, or saturated fat. Having too much of these products could lead to diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. Our health is in danger. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels now. Sign the petition on heala.org. HEALA.org.
Welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of St. Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. S3, open up.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what youth-focused issues the G20 should incorporate ahead of the summit. And we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
In a strange way, some may think of the G20 as significant as hosting a World Cup. Maybe I'm being far-fetched, but just think about it, the implications that it may have for South Africa all throughout the year. And you've already seen this high of activity in think tanks and proposals and mobilization in that space. And that could well all go well. And I say World Cup, by the way, the anniversary of the 2010 World Cup is today. Remember that day? 11th of June. 2010. I certainly was amongst that privileged group of people who were at that opening game when Simpiwe Shabalala scored the goal. I'm just being very, very nostalgic. Let's get on to other things now. So, you may be aware of the public procurement bill, right? And what that really means. But while we think about that, the city of Cape Town itself have approached the Constitutional Court to invalidate the Public Procurement Act. So what exactly are they so concerned about to take the matter to the Constitutional Court? With me is the Mayor of Cape Town, Jordan Hill-Lewis. Mayor Lewis, as always, appreciate your time on the National Pulse.
Absolute pleasure. Nice to be with you.
Thank you. Right. So what is it that you find problematic with this bill?
Okay, so at a practical or process level, the public participation process and the consultation with the provinces in the NCOP was woefully inadequate. This is a bill that has profound implications for the way that every single level of government or government organization in the country works. Whether we are procuring a pencil or procuring an enormous infrastructure project or procuring essential services for the public, everything is defined, that procurement is defined by this bill. So it's really important. And the public participation was just very, very rushed and scant and woefully inadequate. And so we think, that falls foul of the constitutional requirements for public participation. Then we've got a second complaint, and that is that it squeezes the space and authority for state entities, not just the city, but any state entity, whether that be a city or provincial government or some other state entity, to design our own rules that are appropriate for our context in our space, and sets this kind of one-size-fits-all set of procurement rules, which we think is not healthy and probably unconstitutional as well.
Okay, so let's break it up into two. On the public participation part, right, how much of public participation for you would be satisfactory, would be satisfying and adequate?
It's not really just about the amount. It's about whether it's meaningful. There were very significant changes made to the bill at the last minute, and those changes were not ever consulted on. So, if you put a bill to Parliament and then get everyone to consult and comment on that bill, and then at the last minute you sneakily change a whole lot of the bill in very important ways, then it seems to us as though that was always your intention from the beginning. So you really duped the public and you duped the rest of the states, cities and local governments and provinces and so on. So it's really about it's not about the amount, it's about whether it's meaningful and substantive.
Okay, let's get back to the other part, which is, you're speaking about, having your own rules within different regions. So just so that we understand it, what is your understanding currently in terms of the way regions do business versus how that may change if this is enacted in law?
So the Constitutional Court said a couple of years ago that the old Act, this is the reason we have a new Act, by the way, because of this Concord judgment of a couple of years ago. The old Act was, centralized too much power in the hands of the National Minister and the National Treasury, and didn't allow space for other state entities to design their own rules, and struck that old Act down. This Act replaces that but doesn't fix that objection at all. In fact, this, I think, actually centralizes more power in the hands of the Minister of Finance, and strongly restricts the flexibility of cities and municipalities to design our own policies that serve our local needs. And so I think actually you will have more red tape. There's a number of examples where it actually makes procurement even more time consuming. Now, I must tell you, Ashraf, probably the most frustrating thing in government is how long it takes to get anything procured. If you want to do something really valuable and useful for the public, it's a minimum of a year that it will take you to procure anything in the state.
Mm-hmm.
So this risks actually making that even longer and slower, and I think that's a bad idea for the public.
But I mean, historically, is the slow rate of procurement, is it slow because of tardiness or inefficiencies or too many systems, or is that also driven by the necessary checks and balances that you and I know? There's not a day that goes by without someone saying there's been so much, there's been loopholes in the system, and therefore procurement has gone to the wrong person for the wrong reasons.
The problem is that, as always, with almost every rule, the person who wants to break the rule will find a new way around it, and the rest of us will have to just comply and comply at greater cost and with more time cost as well. So the amount of effort that goes into getting a clean audit — Cape Town's the only city in the country that gets a clean audit — the amount of effort and energy and time and resources that goes into that is extraordinary. Now, we do it because we believe that's important. But I assure you, with the strictest rules in the world, even after this legislation, every other place will just carry on doing exactly what they want and find a way around those rules, and we will just have to spend more time and money complying with them. And so that's the way it works with all rules. It's not about tighter rules. It's about better checks and balances, better public accountability, and ultimately better governance. Okay,
let's get back to the Concord Challenge. I mean, what are your thoughts about the rate of or the possibilities of success there?
Well, I've learned the hard way that you must sometimes take a lawyer's advice with a pinch of salt. But all of our senior counsel tell us that we have a very, very strong case, and that they think Parliament really did mess up the public participation stage of this bill, and therefore it cannot pass. But we'll have to wait and see. That's the honest truth.
But here's the last thing. I mean, maybe a year and a bit ago, you would have been speaking, let's say, in the same position as the mayor, as a mayor in opposition to national government. Now your party, yes, you're speaking from a provincial perspective or city perspective, but your national party is part of the GNU. Isn't there a better chance, outside of going to the Concord, to renegotiate that with the GNU, of which your party has significant input into?
Oh, we certainly tried, Ashraf. I've been writing to the President and the Minister of Finance for more than probably 8 months. I first wrote to the Minister of Finance and never got a response. I then wrote to the President. He responded but referred me back to the Minister of Finance. I then wrote back to the Minister of Finance and the Deputy Minister, who is a GNU Deputy Minister. And it was just clear to me that was going. So I'll put up we'll show all of that correspondence to the court. We have really tried to convey these concerns and get a response, but unfortunately, it has not been successful. And so we're not going to back down as a result of that. We have to proceed.
Okay, let's follow through on that story there, because if other things take 1 year, maybe this may be longer or shorter. We'll follow that story to the Concord. Jordan Hill-Lewis, the Mayor of Cape Town, much appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. And I'll get your thoughts as well, by the way, and including some other developments that I think are particularly important that I'd like to hear from you. Now, and one of them would be, did you know about this one, the South Africa securing a World Bank loan to be used for energy reforms? What do you make of that? How much of that is linked to South Africa running out of money, and therefore, government that is, and therefore remember that hike for VAT in the first place? The plan was 2% initially. That changed to 0.5 to nothing. Where do they get the money from? We'll talk about all of that as well later on the show. Do not miss it. You are connected to the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the death toll in the Eastern Cape floods has risen to 49. The chairperson of the Standing Committee on Finance, Dr. Joel Maswanganyi, has defended the decision of the committee to support the adoption of the fiscal framework and revenue proposals that contain a general fuel levy increase. And South Korea has suspended loudspeaker broadcasts into North Korea, which have been playing along the border since last year, July. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Hose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 northbound in Sandton slow moving towards Marlborough Drive. The M1 southbound is slow moving towards Boyson's exit. The N3 southbound in Alexandra has a stationary vehicle near London Road, and Reverend Frederick Modise Drive in Soweto is where protest action is reported. The road's closed through Meadowlands. In KZN, the N2 northbound is stationary vehicle before the M41 gateway exit. In Cape Town, Marine Drive outbound in Pardon Island, slow moving towards Boundary Road. Broadway Boulevard in Strand has a crash at Main Road, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Love the fact that on many of the social media posts I've seen, people are cheering the South African flag, really in solidarity with the South African cricket team who are playing in the World Test Cricket Final, right? And you got the scores.
Yes, Australia now on 190 for 5 after 50 overs. It is T with Webster and Carey at the crease. Will definitely keep you up to date. It's day one of the World Test Championship against the Proteas at Lord's. Meanwhile, the Proteas women are also in action against West Indies. It's the first of the 3 one-day international, and West Indies won the toss and elected to bowl first, with South Africa currently on 42 for no loss after 9 overs. Then in football, Chippa United have officially announced Sinetemba Badela as their new head coach ahead of the next season. Badela joins the Chile Boys following a season-long stint with Moroccan Giants Wydad Athletic Club. He worked as one of Rulani Mugwena's assistants at Wydad, but the stint was cut short towards the end of last season, and this was on the back of Thabo September's departure from the club. This is following the conclusion of the next season. Just keeping a close eye on the PSL playoffs. Orbit College versus Keswick Stars. 72 minutes in, it remains goalless. Meanwhile, former Mamelodi Sundowns captain Hlompo Kekana believes that current coach Miguel Cardoso remains the right man to win the club's second CAF Champions League title. Now, the Portuguese mentor has fallen short at the final hurdle in 2 successive attempts. First with Esperance Tunis last year, and then lost to Al Ahly, and then earlier this month as Sundowns suffered defeat at the hands of Pyramids FC. Cardoso has come under fire among Sundowns fans and pundits over his approach, especially after that second leg in Egypt. Bakekana, who's a 2016 winner of the Continental Crown, is adamant that he can end the long wait for a second stop.
Personally, I think he did very, very well since he got to Mamelodi Sundowns, considering the fact that he got the team 7 games in the league already. It's not easy to come into South African football and try to, get into the system and understand how players play. Yeah, in South Africa we play with raw talent. You need to understand that and try to get into them buying your philosophy. But when I look at the overall performance over this year already, I feel like he has done enough. He has done enough to put even the team into the Champions League final. I think they for me, I think they deserve to win that final, if you'd ask me. But that's how the football goes. That's how football works. The teams that you normally feel like you can beat, you might not beat. But I do support the coach. I still believe that he can bring Champions League to here at Sundowns.
Also, Manchester City have confirmed the signing of AC Milan midfielder Gianni Reinders for an initial fee of 46.5 million euros, which is around 1.1 billion rand on a 5-year contract. The Netherlands international is Pep Guardiola's fourth signing, and Reinders was signed in time to be eligible for this month's Club World Cup in America and could make his debut on the 18th of June against Wydad. He scored 15 goals in 54 matches across all competitions for Milan last term and was named Serie A's midfielder of the season. Finally, in rugby, injury concerns have cast a slight shadow over the Bulls' preparation for the URC final against Leinster. Cameron Hanekom suffered a painful injury in the 47th minute of the semi-final and had to be stretched off. He has been ruled out of the final. Now, the injury also affects national plans, and Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has already called up Stormers' eighth man, Evan Roos, as Hanekom's replacement for the upcoming Barbarians match in Cape Town on the 28th of June.
You know, my job is just to channel all that positive energy and all that, like you say, you know, where we are, what we've achieved, you know, where we are in our season, the kind of guys that we got that can play against Leinster, and a lot of these guys that are playing have beaten Leinster, even in big games. You know, we didn't have Cameron when we beat them there in 2021. We had Marcel and Marcu. You know, so you know, we'll have Marcel and Marcu this week again, just to use two names. We beat them there. Kainan played fullback. Kirtley couldn't play when we beat them there in a knockout game a couple of years ago. So I do believe that you've got to only control the things you can control, and the things we can control now is who's going, and then it's my job and the coach's job to get them to be as prepared as they can, mentally, physically, and obviously mentally, physically, and also just from an excitement point of view, because it's going to be big for these youngsters.
Just touching on the Springboks, I saw someone else complaining yesterday about the Springboks versus Australia tickets starting at 1,750 for the Ellis Park match in the Rugby Championship, and he's basically saying it's another slap in the face.
Right? Because Tumi was also complaining the other day. Remember Tumi complaining on air?
I do. And he's just saying that it's another slap in the face of SA fans. 95% of us can't afford to see our Boks live. The national team is for everyone, not just the privileged elite. Make rugby accessible.
Look, we've had this conversation before.
I'm just saying.
And they're both right. They're both right to the point that make it accessible for everybody, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, SA Rugby has to stay afloat, and to ensure that they are afloat to pay the type of salaries necessary, they have to charge prices. Now, the problem is the more successful a club is, in this case, the national team, the more likely they are to fill up a stadium, which means they're more likely to charge higher prices. Sure. And you see, that's when people say, you see, the free market system doesn't work. But that is the reality.
But remember, one of our listeners once said, you know, South Africans are funny. When it comes to concerts, you will cover that amount to buy tickets to go to a concert. So I'm sure you can do the same.
I mean, if you asked me, if I'm taking, say, a family of 4 people to the Springboks game and spending close to 2,000 rands, like 2,000, like to 10,000 rands, basically 8,000, you're going to buy chow.
Yeah.
No, I will not spend. I don't have the money.
Would you spend that money to go to a concert?
What type of concert are you talking about?
I'm just saying.
Free Mandela, maybe. I don't know which one you're talking about. No, the average concert, I'd be very reluctant. Very, very reluctant. It's a case of but there are other priorities in life.
True.
And that's what I think most people listening maybe say, it's true. We also like to be there, but we have other priorities. But they will still say, it's the World Champions. We would like to be there.
I'd love to watch the Springboks.
Welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of Sainte Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. S3, open up.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Okay, let's get to the numbers now with from the Springbok ticket numbers to other numbers of business. Makwe Masilela is the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, it's always good to connect. You've got local and international markets to come. But let's start with the interim results for Pan-African Resources.
Afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to your listeners. The guys have realized a record gold production up 32%, and there was a substantial reduction in their net debt, down 32%. And Ashraf, at these high gold prices, they expect to be fully debt-free during the full year of 2026. And their all-in sustaining cost up 3.3%. And that's because of lower than expected production following the slower than anticipated ramp-up in the production at Evander. And also they realized the losses on the zero-cost collar hedges of almost $25 an ounce. And yes, global markets are having a mixed reaction to the news that the U.S. and Chinese officials reached a tentative consensus on trade, which Trump has approved, waiting for his counterpart now. And while the European Union sees U.S. trade talks extending beyond Trump's July the 9th deadline, and a federal appeal court ruled that Trump's trade tariffs can remain in place, and that itself dampened hopes that a legal challenge could block the duties. And before proceeding, stocks and bonds rose after a much-awaited U.S. key inflation, which was better than expected, strengthening the case for a rate cut. And bear in mind that the jobs numbers were also solid last week, and record high purchases and a blistering rally in prices has seen gold overtake the euro as the second largest asset in reserves that is held by central banks. That is, it reached 20%, surpassing the euro at 16%, and the U.S. dollar extended its steady decline, reaching 46% of global reserves. And locally, according to the Bank of Africa, South Africans swiped, tapped, and transferred more money last month than any other month this year. And that's a small but hopeful sign the economy might be moving in the right direction. Oil prices got a lift from the positive conclusion of those trade talks between U.S. and China, and also from the increased price of a rate cut. Brent crude is up 2.3% at $68 a barrel. And yes, gold held gains, and that despite that cooler than expected inflation. Yellow metal is up 0.2% at 3,330. Platinum up a whooping 5% at 1,277. Ashraf, global markets are cautiously up, with the JSE down 0.1%. As our financials so far erased their yesterday's gains, and the rand weakened 0.2% against the dollar, 17.73, 24 against the pound, and 20.36 against the euro.
SAFM.
Makwe Masilela is the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. All right, let's. You need to be very aware of this, Dro. So SAFM, well, we are inviting young people between the ages of 18 to 35. So that's you. Then you need to take an interest in this one. What about the takeover of the airwaves this month, this Youth Month? What you have to do is send us a WhatsApp voice note. Really, voice note works best because it's going to get us to understand who you are, to 0614 104 107. You got that? 0614 104 107. You have the other option to email info@safm.coza. And the show you'd like to co-host telling us, so you need to give a show's name. Like, you want to be on this show, like, say, The National Pulse. Come on. And then tell us, very importantly, what youth-focused issues the G20 should be incorporating ahead of the actual summit. And if you're very convincing with your pitch, well, you could be sitting right next to me soon. Terms and conditions apply. Entries close imminently so, 13th of June, 2 days from now.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
And talking about the G20, I did make the point it could well be like the business-driven World Cup for South Africa on a day that we celebrate, from 2010, 15 years since we hosted the 2010 Football World Cup today. So are you being nostalgic? I certainly am, right? But let's talk about then coming out of G20, the different forums that is made up of G20 and where they filtered down through, right? One of them would be the Tshwane metropolitan area. Let's find out more about their plans around, the U20 mayors and what their plans are with Eugene Modise, who's the Deputy Executive Mayor and MMC for Finance in that region. Appreciate your time, Eugene Modise. Thanks for joining us. Are you there? I'm trying to just hear you clearly. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm saying good afternoon to you and your listeners. Am I audible?
Yes, you certainly are. Absolutely got that right. Okay, let's talk about, so there's been so many offshoots from the major G20. One of them is the U20. So what is the U20 and why is it the U20 African mayors and why is that important?
It's important in the sense that all African mayors are converging under one roof, sharing their experiences and engaging on difficulties that they are confronted with. And we've got what we call Sherpas. Sherpas is the bureaucrats of the industry, those who got wealthy experience and the know-how and the understanding, and they share with us the approach on solving the problems or challenges. That's the significance, actually, and the thrust of this U20.
Okay, and so you're saying African mayors as opposed to South African mayors. So this is continent-wide, right?
Yes. Listen, the U20 is a global phenomenon. It's a global concept. So we're going to host 32 African mayors, and we're hosting international mayors. I can tell you now, New York and Los Angeles have already confirmed. Paris is part of it. And in the process, we are accommodating all the metros of South Africa and even district municipalities.
Okay. Well, U20 stands for Urban 20s. We certainly have that. So tell me more then about the key objectives. Once you come together, what are the objectives and what would be the processes that you undergo?
Okay, let me start by being selfish as Tshwane and Gauteng and South African. We've got a wonderful program called African Continental Free Trade. It is normally spoken about at international arenas. I'm referring to 54 of them on this. So it will be for us to expose our SMMEs to those opportunities which are across the entire spectrum of this continent. So that's the basics. And then perhaps let me use Kenya with their wealth experience of IT. They'll be coming in with their insight and the experience to assist us in terms of service delivery responses. There's a unit that we use which is handheld that can pick up a photo, take a picture, send to the dashboard central. The dashboard will tell you, it will dispatch to the nearest depot and communicate with the nearest officials on the ground, and response will be swift in that regard. So those are the things that we're going to discuss. Each and every municipality got shortcomings or limitations, but they've got where they specialize. So we're going to make sure that we harness that.
Well, let's talk about the specialization. Going back again to your city, the city of Tshwane. What makes it unique? And then going forward, you may want to develop new, unique USPs for your region. What would they be?
From now on, let me just speak about the recent things. We have become the trailblazer in the country of adopting funded budgets, and you know the significance thereof. But in addition, just recently, Moody have upgraded our ratings. It's as a result of the work that we are doing in finances. And our submission rate to the AG have increased exponentially from 80 to 96. So in the process, the GRC have increased our rating. This demonstrates that we understand the finances. And this, our friend, sister countries can come in and learn from us.
How then, in terms of these processes, I would think that the community, the citizens of the community of the Tshwane would be listening in and saying, how does this filter down to benefit them? So how would they benefit?
Let me tell you about our problem as a country, which is the scarcity of water. There are countries that have got the know-how of managing their water, who are going to tap into that, come and assist us in terms of ensuring that we give our people water and quality water. So it's not only Africa, even Denmark, which we are having a relationship with in terms of water. And you know, you can go to the internet, you'll see Denmark is one of the number one or at the top of the hierarchy in terms of quality, sustainable water. So in the process, we'll be able to get those information and how, and it will translate to a service delivery and in this regard water. And there will be infrastructure financing companies or houses which will come and assist us because we've got leakages, we've got ailing infrastructure, and we'll be able to sit down with them and talk about the terms and ensure that we give our people a quality service which is sustainable.
I want to ask you about climate change and the need to create activism around it or for it, which I'll do right after this.
Welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of St. Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 28 May. S3, open up.
This Youth Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit, power and potential of young South Africans. Join us as we dive into conversations that matter, from innovation to education and skills for the changing world, empowering youth for meaningful economic participation. Because at SAFM, we're not just talking, we're leading the conversations that move us. Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's conclude the conversation with Eugene Modise, the Deputy Executive Mayor and MMC for Finance in the city of Tshwane. We referred to in the context of the U20 African Mayors Assembly and the Sherpa meeting, all that linked, of course, to G20. Right, so before I let you go, let's get this then. If a huge issue has got to be climate change and therefore climate action or activism, right? But linked to all of that is funding. So what are your thoughts around issues of funding and how does, say, a city like yours achieve and attain funding and maybe others too?
Thank you very much. Climate change is real. I think we've got history of scientists fighting, exchanging views, but now the chicken has come to roost. It's real. That is why even in our instance, we are experiencing profuse rainflow, which forms or causes floods. So in the process, for us to manage this unfortunate situation, we must be able to have money, and I think we know money can buy everything. So the first thing that will be is to mitigate the emissions. How do you do that? The first thing is to make sure that you got a well-orchestrated vegetation. I'm referring to trees that will be able to assist us in terms of carbon emission. And then because here in Tshwane, we are an automotive area, we must be able to have a conversation with those who produce cars that let's align ourselves or conform to the standard required by the state. Then we will be able to employ officials or officers who will be able to monitor that process. Because in terms of profit making, there's a likelihood that you might circumvent things. So we'll be monitoring that to ensure that everybody understands. But in the process, we'll be able to develop our stormwaters because now the plants which are obsolete and old cannot able to channel the water when there's flooding. I think you have seen what happened in Centurion, where those police lost their lives, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And then our flagship city in Centurion is not convenient to go and shop or enjoy yourself anymore because of the landscape. So in terms of climate change, we are here and we are happy that the international climate change champions will be able to assist us in terms of accessing the finances so that we are in line and we are responding positively to their demands or their compliance.
Okay, let's leave it at that and let's hope all those targets will be achieved. That's the MMC for Finance and the Deputy Executive Mayor at MMC for Finance in the region of the city of Tshwane, Eugene Modise. Much appreciate you connecting with us on the National Pulse. Next up, we connect with you. And when I say you, I really mean you, as in you're on the pulse. You tell me what is it that you want to raise. Now, before I get to you, make a note of this. SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this month, right? Being Youth Month, of course. So all you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note to 0614 104 107 or email info@safm.coza and then mention the show you'd like to co-host. Mention the National Pulse, telling us then what youth-focused issues the G20 should incorporate ahead of the summit. And you could be the one that we could be calling. T's and C's apply. Entries closed 13th of June.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Well, lots of people commenting about did something angry party and other things too. Let's hear it.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the listeners of SAFM. I'm listening to this previous statistician for unemployed people. They're counting the people from like 15 to 60 or 64. And maybe that's why their numbers is not right, because people from 15 years old, I mean, they're supposed to be in school. How can they count those people? Maybe that's why the figures is not right. John here from George.
Okay, the figures are not right. That's one comment. Here's another.
Hi, Ashraf and the listeners of SAFM. Ashraf, now I understand. It's Wilson from East London. That the politicians, I heard it before, that politicians, they don't take the stats seriously. They don't even discuss it in cabinet. They are just sitting on the information. They know nothing about statistician department. We are not going anywhere. People like Dow, Minister Dow, who collapsed Johannesburg, now is busy collapsing the country with a fake stats. Wow.
Do you think Tau collapsed Johannesburg? I mean, seriously? And you think he's collapsing South Africa? I mean, what's your evidence for that? As far as the stats are concerned, I hear what you're saying. Certainly, Pani Lahotla disagrees with Park Stow and his position. Perhaps we need to get Park Stow on as soon as we can to explain himself, right? Like, summoning you to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee. This one is called the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the SAFM listeners. I really like people who speak their minds out. Like that statistician general, the former one. I really like his views. He's not boxed in. He speaks his mind out clearly in the open. That's what nation building is like. Andrew from Butterworth.
Thanks, Andrew. And here's another comment on dialogue.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, this national dialogue is a waste of money and time. They know what is the problem with South Africa. It's immigration. Simple as that. If they fix immigration and employment, which is attached to this poor immigration, they'll be sorted. Normally for Brixton.
You think it's as simple as that? Just poor migration, everything will be sorted out. The dialogue concerns a whole range of issues. Think about that. We'll play more of your sound bites or your comments and take your calls on Power Dealer Hotline and stats and unemployment numbers and everything else, including the conversation with the mayor of Cape Town and even further comments about the USA and maybe the flotilla story, if you want to pick up on that too, and maybe something else I'm missing out on. In the meantime, let's get to the news brought to you by Absa Ultimate Banking. Apply online to get 34 benefits subject to affordability and scoring. Benefits may be subject to limitations. Terms and conditions apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. Here's the
Thank you, Ashraf, and welcome back. Scores die in Eastern Cape, storms in South Korea, loudspeaker broadcasts end. Good day to you. The death toll linked to a storm that hit the Eastern Cape is currently at 49. This was just announced by the Premier, Oscar Mabuyane. The O.R. Tambo area of the province has been the hardest hit. The Premier says search and rescue operations are continuing, and these are not the final numbers.
So, as we said, the numbers are just escalating. An hour after hour. So the situation is so bad on the ground.
The first sitting of the reopened inquest into the deaths of the Cradock Fours wrapped up in the High Court in the Eastern Cape. The inquest is looking into events surrounding the 1985 murders of the anti-apartheid activists, allegedly at the hands of the apartheid security police. The inquest is expected to resume in October. On the final day of this sitting, the court heard from the last surviving member of Matthew Goniwe's immediate family, his only son, Inyaniso Goniwe, who was just 3 years old when his father was killed.
And that's, I think, been the unfortunate thing about these inquests. Really, people telling the truth, because we can't talk about forgiveness. We can't forgive at this point until we get the truth. And those perpetrators that applied for amnesty while they had lied for all those years.
Chairperson of Parliament's Standing Committee on Finance, Joe Maswingani, has defended the decision of the committee to support the adoption of the fiscal framework and revenue proposals that contain a hike in the fuel levy. The National Assembly is debating the committee's report, which was voted by the majority of members. Last month, the Finance Minister tabled a budget that proposes a general fuel levy hike of 16 cents and 15 cents a litre for petrol and diesel, respectively. The chairperson elaborates.
Honourable Speaker, let us adopt this budget to build an inclusive economy, heal our country from racial divisions, fight unemployment, poverty and inequality, and create opportunities for all. The report was accepted by the majority of committee members who understand that the continued impasse was going to cripple the country. Honourable Speaker, I therefore move for the adoption of the fiscal framework and revenue proposals report.
The Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Bladen Zimonde, says there's a need to have science and technology forums at provincial and local level. He's leading the South African delegation at the second Ministerial Belt and Road Science and Technology Conference being held in China.
Well, the meeting with the Chinese Academy, the Chinese Association of Science and Technology, is that we were strengthening relations that it has already established, for instance, with our Council for Natural and Scientific Professions, which is our engineers and so on. They already have got joint programs to develop engineering science and strengthen engineering science in South Africa, because engineering, by the way, is not only important in its application, it's also important in terms of new ideas, innovation.
Further afield, South Korea suspended loudspeaker broadcasts into North Korea, which have been playing along the border since last year. The new president wants to improve bilateral ties and had promised to stop them. The BBC's Mickey Bristow has more.
In the past, when South Korea has shown goodwill, the North Korea has responded, and it's often left-leaning governments in South Korea that try to get on better with North Korea. A previous president a few years ago, Moon Jae-in, for example, he met Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader, at one of these periods of the country's getting on well again. So I'm sure the current leader, Lee Jae-myung, believes the same. He just wants to get on as well as he can with North Korea, but these things tend to go in cycles between North and South Korea. There are periods when they're getting on better, periods when they're not.
Top story, the death toll linked to the storm that hit the Eastern Cape is currently at 49. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Hus.
Thanks for that, Greg. Right, now we're going to have lots more to come, but let me remind you, this news bulletin was brought to you by Absa Ultimate Banking. Apply online to get 34 benefits subject to affordability, and scoring benefits may be subject to limitations. Terms and conditions apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
And coming up in sports this hour, Australia bowled out for 212 against South Africa. This is the first innings in the World Test Championship final on day one. Also, we chat all things the business of cricket in our Business of Sport feature just later on with Ngobile Ndlovu. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in four ways, slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive exit. The R24 westbound in Edenvale, queuing towards the N12 highway merge. The R21 southbound in Kenton Park is slow moving towards Voortrekker Road, and the N3 northbound in Bedfordview, slow moving on the ramp to the N12 east at Giluli's interchange. In KZN, the N2 northbound slow moving towards the M41 gateway exit, and the N2 northbound has roadworks reported. One lane open near the Moss Kolnick Drive exit that's causing some delays. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. Broadway Boulevard in Strand is where a crash is reported at Main Road, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Are we ready for a real conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
We're extending the sunshine on Mzansi's favorite adventure SUV with Ford Blue Sky offers. For just $849,999, a new Everest XLT could be yours. Glide through the burbs or power through nature's toughest with a 3.5-ton brake towing capacity. You'll even get 4x4 driver training through Ford Family Promise for free. Head to a Ford dealer and get your new Everest XLT for just $849,999. T&Cs apply.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The reigning champions Banyana Banyana and 11 African national teams are ready to tackle each other for WAFCON 2024 to determine who are the real queens of the continent. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Experience the Women Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024 from 5 to 26 July 2025. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 1 and SABC 2. Also available on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Mzansi, Walala Wasala. Play Lotto, Lotto Plus 1 and Lotto Plus 2 for a staggering 97 million rand in total estimated jackpots this Wednesday, and you could win big. Play Lotto for an estimated 70 million rand, Lotto Plus 1 for 16 million rand, and Lotto Plus 2 for 11 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So, you may be aware, of course, there's been, atrocious weather in many parts of South Africa, right, for the last few days. And then it filters down into disasters, and sadly you then have the potential for loss of life, and then often actual loss of life, right? So you may have heard the story earlier this morning about authorities in the Eastern Cape recovering the minibus taxi that was carrying 10 missing learners in the Mthatha region. That was one. There's been more stories, and therefore the numbers of people who have been affected by the adverse weather conditions in the Eastern Cape, particularly in terms of loss of life, has risen, sadly so. Let's find out more about what's happening and what's not happening, and the impact of that in the region with Abongile Yankees, who's the SABC News reporter covering the story. Abongile, I appreciate you connecting with us on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. I mean, so it's clearly been a devastating day, I think, in that region. It may be a difficult time for you to report on it, but certainly that's your job, and you have to tell us what we don't know. So what has happened today?
Well, the search and rescue for the missing people has been continuing, and mop-up operations have been happening. And we just got off a briefing where the provincial government has been briefing the media, and that 49 people have been confirmed to have died as a result of these devastating floods, Ashraf. And the search is still continuing, and even for those learners who were in a minibus taxi, 4 of them are still missing. Amongst the deceased within that minibus taxi, it includes the driver and a passenger who was there. And 3 learners are lucky to have been rescued from that minibus taxi. Well, the Premier of the Eastern Cape, Oscar Mabuyane, is pushing for, while they're conducting the assessments there, he's pushing for this area of the Eastern Cape, the entire province, to be declared a disaster area, even for schooling. Around 6,000 over 6,000 learners have been affected by this, and just over 58 schools have been affected. You recall that we are in the middle of exams for those mid-year exams for learners, and but they are saying that they'll put plans in place to ensure that the academics don't get affected. And the one thing that they've been stressing is the issue of people who are living in low-lying areas, people who erect big houses within riverbanks, and when disasters like this hit and bad weather like this hits, they just fall victims to such. And really, even though now the rescue services have been pulled off due to the weather, since it's dark, but tomorrow early morning they are continuing. And that the Minister of Culture, Velengosini Hlabisa, will be descending to this area of Mthatha together with Basic Education Minister Siviwe Gwachube to conduct their own assessment. The provincial government has been stressing that they need more resources and more support to ensure that the families who have been evacuated, the families who are now living in community halls, they are being assisted by all means necessary, because really some of them have lost everything. They just have the clothes that they are wearing then, and that's all they have. If you drive to Butterworth within the Amatole district, their community halls are also full because of this area. And one thing that seems to be picked up on is these victims are people who are living in low-lying areas, and they are saying that the local municipality, King Sabata Dalingyebo, must ensure that the bylaws to erect or build and the issue of land that they are raising, that headmen in traditional areas, that they shouldn't be allocating land to areas where it's not safe for residents, Ashraf.
I think that's a very good point in terms of that means even at the beginning, even when there's a shortage of homes and spaces, to even allow them to get into high-risk areas in the first place is really is creating a Russian roulette scenario where you're looking for trouble, right? But perhaps just give us an overview. I mean, you talked about like close to 30 people having lost their lives. Are you more clear in terms of how they lost their lives? I mean, did all lose their lives for the same reasons? What I'm saying, I know there's the overall issue is flooding, but then the actual losses could be very different in each scenario. Are you able to tell us more about that?
Well, it's flooding, Ashraf. That's what they are saying. That's why even the helicopter where we witnessed one person being one body being taken from the sea, from my mistake, from those floods which were ravaging this area. It's strictly flooding. That's what they are pushing forward. It's due to the bad weather that wreaks havoc and this issue of the residents living in low-lying areas. We could say that they were trying by all means to ensure that they came on time, to ensure that their lives could be saved, but they are saying, as we speak now, 49 people have died as a result of such flooding, and the number is likely to rise as these rescue services do continue and the searches for the missing people is continuing.
Okay, what can you tell us in terms of support? Support for the families of those that have lost lives directly, then those that are missing, because there's a huge anxiety around that, and then those that are survivors who also I would think are hugely troubled because they've been displaced. What type of support is there for them?
Well, at the Joint Operations Center, where a number of government departments, including your social development, your transport, your COGTA, and business, the private sector as well, they are saying that they're putting all hands on deck to ensure that for those families who don't, for those survivors, counseling is being provided. For those who lost their family members, counseling is being provided. And to those who don't have food to eat or a meal or warm meal, the organizations such as the Gift of the Givers are also on board to ensure that they do receive a meal. Even the local municipality has drawn up that plan to ensure that at least they receive food. And as you visit these community halls, the churches, the way they've been evacuated to, it's really quite a dire situation. It's quite packed. That much I can tell you. And the support, even though it might not be to their full satisfaction, but something is being done, even though it's not to their full satisfaction.
Mm-hmm. All right, just to conclude, is there any other issue that you think we as the National Pulse audience needs to know?
Well, apart from the ministry coming to this area of Mthatha tomorrow, we shall take it from there because more plans are expected to be announced as part of these relief programs that the government plans to hand over to these residents of this area.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Appreciate your time for now. Abongile Jantjies, the SABC News reporter in the Eastern Cape, covering the tragic story of the flood, adverse weather conditions, flood-driven causes of deaths of close to 30 people and many others still missing as well. A real tragedy in our country. You are connected to the National Pulse.
Ultimate Value is opening an account with 34 benefits while getting her a treat. Ultimate Success is getting her the ballet shoes that you promised. With a 2,000 Rand balance booster, Ultimate Goals is living life on your own terms with a credit card with 0 monthly fees. Absa Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rand per month. Apply online now. Your story matters. Absa, subject to affordability and scoring. T's and C's apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider.
Every murder has a moment when it could have been stopped. Countdown to Murder takes you inside the chilling timeline from ordinary days to unthinkable crimes. Real stories, real people, and the final hours before everything fell apart. Countdown to Murder. Every second tells a story. Thursdays at 9 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what youth-focused issues the G20 should incorporate ahead of the summit. And we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So, user story should get you thinking, because things are never just as straightforward and clear cut as they seem, right? So, the World Bank has approved a $1.5 billion loan, to South Africa. Why? It'll be used to revitalize South Africa's ailing infrastructure. Just make a note of that, right? We also understand the bulk of the money will be used to aid Eskom's grid to accommodate more renewable energy sources. So lots of questions, right? So why now that our current country needs to reach out to once again get a loan? So in fact, it increases its debt. It has to service its debt. And just think about what happened around the time of when the budget was first tabled. The original plan was 2%. Then it got down to 0.5, then to nothing. But clearly, that deficit has been made up some way or the other. So did all of this fit in as well? I mean, currently, just to give a sense of it, the debt servicing costs for the government is 389.6 billion rands in the year. Let's understand what's really happening and what's at play here with Dawie Roodt, the Director and Chief Economist of the Efficient Group. Dawie, appreciate you connecting with us as always on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you, Ashraf.
Thank you. So help us understand what this, I'm going to call it, it's a loan, but I'm going to call it a deal because of the reasons I'm suggesting that what's happening here. So help us understand what's going on.
Okay, there are a number of moving parts here. Let me just start off by saying that the outstanding debt of the state is close to 5,700 billion rand. Just think about that for a moment. That's a huge number. The amount of money that we borrowing, this loan that you're referring to now, is less than 30 billion rand. So in a bigger scheme of things, it's not really that much of an amount of money. It is a lot of money, of course, but the total outstanding debt is really, really huge, and that's the big issue. Remember, the fiscal account works as follows. Is the Minister of Finance, it takes money out of the economy by way of various taxes. VAT, for example, they wanted to increase VAT, and in the end they did not increase VAT, but they increased other taxes, like, for example, the fuel levy, and the most important one is personal income taxes and so on. So there's all sort of revenue sources to the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance also borrows a lot of money. The bulk of the money that he borrows is local money, and it's denominated in rand, mostly from places like, for example, pension funds or the savings industry or the banks and so on. And some foreigners also lend money to the South African government in rand terms. But the Minister of Finance also borrows some money internationally, not that much, but some money internationally. And of that 5,700 billion rand, approximately 13% of that is denominated not in rands, but in dollars or in euros or yens or something else. So it's a relatively small amount of money. So how the process works, the Minister of Finance will borrow this money from the International Monetary Fund or from the World Bank in this instance. The dollars will go to the South African Reserve Bank, and the Reserve Bank then will credit the account of the Minister of Finance at the South African Reserve Bank. That is called the Exchequer account. And now the Minister of Finance got access to this money and he can spend it on whatever. In this instance, he will spend it on certain projects that have been pre-approved by the World Bank. And usually what happens is that there's some sort of agreement between the Treasury and the South African Reserve Bank. Remember that in the meantime, the South African Reserve Bank will have this $1.5 billion and some other dollars that they will have available. But usually there's an agreement between the Reserve Bank and Treasury whereby Treasury cannot lay their hands on this $1.5 billion. They already received the rand equivalents for that. And one day if they want to repay that, they have to bring the rands to the South African Reserve Bank, and the South African Reserve Bank will then use the dollars at the Reserve Bank to repay the specific loan. In the meantime, the World Bank will keep an eye on some of these projects that have been pre-approved by the World Bank, things like you refer to things like, for example, Eskom and perhaps Transnet and so on. So that roughly is how the whole process works.
Okay. So if we just stay zeroed in specifically on the World Bank and the issues of, infrastructure development around, say, Eskom and other energy sources, then is this a good deal for South Africa? Because I think as we talk, others may be saying, like, come on, there must be other options rather than going back to the World Bank.
Well, yes and no, and I'm a bit reluctant to say yes or no because we don't really need the dollars as such. We owe a lot of money, but unless you want to use this money to import something from abroad, unless you want to use these dollars to import something specific, like locomotives, for example, or whatever the case may be, can we afford this? That's a completely different question because I started off by saying the outstanding debt of the state is approximately 5,700 billion rand, and that is we can't afford that anymore. But that's a broader fiscal issue. That's a broader state finance issue. We need to cut back on state expenditure because the total debt has gotten completely out of hand. But if you look at the specific loan, we can actually quite comfortably increase our dollar loans. We've got ample capacity for that. And we can, so that in itself is not the major issue. The major issue has to do with the total tax bill or the total debt, which will become eventually unsustainable.
Okay, is there maybe just a final thought and a final insight that you may want to share to us based upon your understanding of how things are being managed?
Yes, but just something interesting about the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. The World Bank has been created originally to fund specific projects, typically infrastructural projects exactly like this. While the International Monetary Fund, they also lend money to bank or to countries like, for example, South Africa, and we also borrow some money from the International Monetary Fund. But that is usually money that the countries borrow when they experience some sort of, let's call it cash flow problem. We refer to it as balance of payments problem. And that's certainly not the case here. So this is a typical loan from the World Bank, and that's why the World Bank was originally created exactly for this, and that's to provide infrastructural loans.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Appreciate your time, as always, on this issue. Dawie Rood from, Chief Economist in this case at the Efficient Group, and question is how efficient is South Africa in terms of managing its budget, its finances, and its loan repayments, and its need to develop infrastructure in our country. Much appreciate your time. This is the National Pulse.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
And you certainly can call because I want to get your thoughts. By the way, you do know that just about every significant conversation we have on the show is up as a podcast. So specifically, the one we had with Dawie Rood, for an example, but not just that. What about the one with Pani Lotla? If you listened in late, you need to listen to that conversation about how angry he's been regarding the suggestion from the CEO of Capitec, suggesting that in effect our unemployment rate is really nowhere near 30. It's actually around 10%. And the reason why there's this big discrepancy is saying many of these unemployed people, in inverted commas, are in fact employed because they're doing, part-time jobs, selling things in the informal sector. And because they're in the informal sector, it's being counted as unemployed, but in reality they're employed. That's according to the CEO of Capitec. But Pani Lotla, in fact, is saying that's offside. That's just not acceptable. And in fact, if that person knew the story well enough, then they would have known up front that that was always counted anyway. So that's one thought. You may want to contribute to that. I want to hear what you have to say. And yes, there are many more issues on some of the stats as well as Pani Lotla's comments.
Good day, Ashraf and SA listeners. At this point, I would have to agree with Ntate Padi. I've worked as a field worker at Stats SA. These issues, we go into details on them. So I'll have to agree with Ntate Padi that the man is talking nonsense. He's talking nonsense. People, the report that says that people are not employed, it's very correct.
The man is talking nonsense. I'm not saying that. That's what you're the caller. That's what you're saying. There's more.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to FM listeners. Ashraf, Status A keep on saying they're releasing stats and they count from each and every household. And I wonder, maybe I'm being ignorant, but then where do they get these stats? Because do they go into individual households and get this information? Where do they pick up these numbers from? Because I know so many people who are unemployed, and I wonder how do they factor for those people? Even for me, as an example, how do they factor me in? Because I've never been asked.
Look, the way it works, they clearly don't go to every single home unless it's the census. Census does that, right? The rest of it, I think it's done in terms of it really is scientific analysis. That where you have a sample, and that sample is multiplied and amplified around the country, and that's where they get the basis of what they think then would be your unemployment rate. But the issue is not even whether it's been properly measured from a scientific perspective. It's whether we're actually asking the right people. And the point that was brought up was that, according to the CEO of Capitec Bank, that in fact there were people who are employed who are being counted as unemployed. And if you're doing something in the informal sector, but you're earning 1,000 rand a day, according to him, you're employed. Paddy Lahotla says, in fact, that's been counted already. This person just doesn't know that anyway. Think about that. Let's get the news headlines. It's 5:30. Here's Greg.
A quick look at the headlines of this half hour. The National Assembly's passed the fiscal framework and revenue proposals with 268 votes against 88. The death toll linked to the storm that hit the Eastern Cape is currently at 49, and the Kenyan president has called the death of a man in police custody heartbreaking and unacceptable. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound slow moving between Linbro Park and Germiston. The N1 southbound slow moving towards Buccleuch interchange. The M2 eastbound in central Johannesburg has a crash reported before Joe Slovo Drive, and Eskom Pahleli Drive northbound in Pretoria has heavy traffic reported towards the Putco depot. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle before Spaghetti Junction, the N3 eastbound a stationary vehicle before Spaghetti Junction, the M7 in Pinetown has heavy traffic reported at St. John's Avenue Bridge, and on the R103 in Pietermaritzburg, a crash reported at Paulie Shorts area. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound is slow moving towards Bunga Avenue, the N1 inbound has a crash before Kuburg interchange, Strandfontein Road southbound is queuing towards Spine Road, and Stellenbosch Arterial Road in Kells River queuing at Noyensfontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The Business of Sports with Tumi Nkhabele.
Right, to me, it's not just sport, but it's the money behind sport. So maybe the conversation we had earlier about the Springbok prices is exactly just that. But you've got other stories to tell us, right?
Absolutely. Let's start things off, though, first with Australia versus South Africa at the World Test Championship. Australia were bowled out for 212 in their first innings against SA in that World Test Championship final at Lord's. Steve Smith top scoring for the Aussies at 66 and Kagiso Rabada taking 5 for 51. Just looking at how South Africa are doing right now, we've already lost a wicket. We're on 7 for 1. Aiden Markram is the wicket that is out, and he went out for a duck. This is after 3 overs. So just because we are very happy that we were able to get those wickets fast, it also means that South Africa, they need to do well with their batting. But as I did say, the Proteas are not the only one in action today. Proteas women also in action in ODI versus West Indies women, and South Africa currently on 104 for 3 after 24 overs. However, in the business of sports today, we're talking all things the business of cricket, and we have Nqobile Ndlovu on the line. Nqobile, a very good afternoon to you. Let's talk all things finances of cricket and why Test cricket struggles to survive in the modern world.
South Africa is up against Australia today. Kagiso Rabada taking 5 wickets, but really the world doesn't think South Africa should be there because Test cricket, once considered the purest form of cricket in the world, has now become a 3-man format. It's played by India, Australia, and England. Test cricket used to be a game which was played by everyone in the 90s, Pakistan, Zimbabwe, remember Steve Ticcolo and the likes. But nowadays, Test cricket is played by the 3. And the reason for that really is because India, when T20 cricket became a thing in 2008, and they launched the Indian Premier League, they began to take over and turn everything upside down. Matches were fast, entertaining, and profitable. Franchises could pay players more in 6 weeks than their national teams could pay them in 6 months. Other countries followed, as I said, Australia with the Big Bash, South Africa now has the SA20, Pakistan has the PSL. All of them have demanded a place in the calendar. And suddenly there just isn't room anymore for 5-day cricket. So what do boards do when they're faced with a choice between 5-day test matches that cost a fortune to stage versus a T20 that takes 4 hours to stage and sells out in 3 hours and brings in big sponsors? Simply put, they follow the money. Today, boards prioritize T20s and ODIs. Tests are expensive, they draw smaller crowds, and they don't deliver financial results quickly, which leads to a vicious cycle. Fewer test matches means lower fan engagement, which leads to even fewer tests. And it gets worse. And if you're a nation that wants to play more test matches, you have to buy yourself into that, which is what Zimbabwe have done. They're now playing 11 tests this year. Ordinarily, they would play maybe 2 or 3. Only a handful of countries, as I said earlier, India, England, and Australia, play test cricket regularly. Everyone else gets scraps. Between 2023 and 2027, these 3 countries, those 3 that I talked about, are scheduled to play between 40 and 45 tests. Meanwhile, countries like Zimbabwe, Ireland, and Afghanistan, they'll play fewer than 10. Some years, maybe just 1. And it's not a coincidence, it's a business model. The ICC, the body meant to govern cricket, has essentially taken its hands off the wheel. And the reason for that is that they get most of their money from broadcast rights. And those broadcast rights primarily come from one country, and it's the country with over 1 billion people in it, which is India, where cricket is basically a religion. And it means, as a result, that 80% of the ICC revenue comes from one market, and that controls the game of cricket as we know it. So what's happened? As a result, T20s have become the thing that everybody watches. We watched this week as Nicholas Pooran, the captain of the West Indies T20s, who's 29 years old and is probably their most marketable player, retired from Test cricket. Last week or 2 weeks ago, Andrew Claassen retired from Test cricket. There've been a whole host of retirements from Test cricket and ODI cricket in this year alone, because players have decided, well, if I can earn what I earn in 6 weeks versus what I would earn in 6 months, let me rather play a few T20 matches here and there. And why bother with Test cricket and ODI cricket? But something can be done about it. The ICC, who controls global cricket, could decide that they want to, unify the global calendar and have specific windows for test cricket, like what you do in international football, where you have windows for international football. Right now, we've got the Nations League that just finished playing and so on. They could distribute their revenues fairly and give smaller nations a fighting chance to play test crickets and ODIs. But what would that do? And would India and Australia allow it? I don't know. The Proteas are playing right now, but really speaking, if you look at the general consensus of people from India, Australia, and England, people say the Proteas shouldn't even be there. What happens to a game when the arbitrators, the people who run the game, who are supposed to keep the game balanced, have essentially taken the game, the hands off the wheel in favor of profit? What happens to a game where fans who are now used to a fast-paced 4-minute or 4-hour game instead of a 5-day game, which is the purest game? What happens to that? What happens to ODIs who are stuck in the middle? It takes a full day to play an ODI. What happens to that? When a game is now drawn and decided over money instead of the health of the game suffers as a result. And until we come to a realization that the ICC or those in charge have to put their hands back onto the wheel and steer this thing in the future, we'll only see the game of Test cricket and ODIs as a result decline even more, to a point where only maybe a couple of teams play it. Once in a while, you see KG Rabada. KG, by the way, should have been one of those all-time greats. He's now stuck on 129 tests. He should have played 200 in his life. That's the business of cricket. It's become taken over by T20s. And unless we can really get to a point where we wrangle this thing and bring it back into line, it will always be that way, where even international cricket players playing for their country becomes a question mark of whether, am I going to earn enough money? It's no longer about the pride of the nation.
Right. Ngobile, thank you very much. I think very interesting. And I guess the question right now is Test cricket dying? Is it savable from it being dead? However, as you've heard, the numbers, it's all about the money nowadays.
Well, I think it's rhetorical. Is it dying? I mean, the numbers suggest it's nowhere near as popular as it was before. That's the fact.
Yeah.
To what degree do you save it? I think the one point from Ngobile, amongst the many things he said that makes sense to me, is have Test cricket weeks that are set aside, right? But here's the point of departure. The idea of a Test series, I think, is dead, because there's no time to have like a month set aside. So what you do in these weeks around the world, when a team like India comes to South Africa, they play one Test match, not best of three. Play one Test. Winner takes it all. The way you'd play one international rugby or cricket match, that's how you do it. There's just not enough time. And as much as we say they're following the money, if you take away, and I'm not a particularly big fan of T20 cricket in the past, but if you take away the money earned from T20 cricket, then you take away everything. So those are being too nostalgic about those were the good old days. Well, you have to evolve in the same way that as you're talking to me now and you're updating your cricket scores, you're checking it on your phone, and you're not live at the Lord's cricket ground any longer. You can do it in different ways.
Absolutely, and we can make a reference to just the Proteas and Australia. You just look at how many tests Australia has played compared to South Africa leading up to this Test final. It's completely different. But talking about that, South Africa right now sitting on 8-1. Feel free to also catch Ngobile Ndlovu on all platforms of social media, Cash and Sports. And for the alphabet, not and. So it's Cash and Sport if you want to check out all his content with regards to the business of sport. With that said, ke nna Tumi Kgapele, Modimo ke yo.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matriek mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bakkie to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
In a land scorched by the sun and shaped by time, life refuses to surrender. From the silent stalk of the Arabian leopard to the resilient march of the sand gazelle, witness nature's fiercest survivors. Arabian Inferno, a journey into one of Earth's most extreme habitats where every day is a battle for survival. This is the wild. This is Arabian Inferno. Sundays at 6 p.m. on S3. Open up.
This Youth Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit, power and potential of young South Africans. Join us as we dive into conversations that matter, from innovation to education and skills for the changing world. Empowering youth for meaningful economic participation. Because at SAFM, we're not just talking, we're leading the conversations that move us.
Right, now you can apply for online, that is, for Absa Ultimate Banking with 34 benefits while listening to this show. This is what the ultimate success looks like. It's getting your daughter the ballet shoes you promised thanks to a 2,000 Rand balance booster. While Ultimate Goals is living life on your own terms with a 0 monthly fee credit card, Absa Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rands a month. Your story matters. Absa, subject to affordability and scoring. Benefits may be subject to limitations. Terms and conditions apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Jimmy, I got your message now about I hope I'm going to be warm in the studio yesterday. Clearly, I was not yesterday, but 24 hours later, you have a story about the World Bank in South Africa. Go for it.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Yes, this is a story that I'd been keeping an eye on from the budget speech days. I think from around the first budget speech, we had known that South Africa had applied for a loan to the World Bank, a loan to the tune of $1.5 billion US, or around 27 billion rands. We've gotten confirmation that that loan has been approved. We'd been reaching out to National Treasury to speak to us on that loan. They've yet to come back to us, so we will be speaking to the chief economist at Rand Merchant Bank, Azayam Mhlanga, around that loan, trying to get a better understanding of what it means for the South African picture. We know that we currently spend around 1.2 billion rand a day in debt servicing costs, and so taking on more debt seems to be something that we should probably do very carefully. We've also got a conversation with the team at Sanlam Investments around the Trump trade, or as it's now being called, the taco trade, the Trump always chickens out trade. We're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at what it means for markets, and in the context of the US-China deal that seems to be going ahead. The United States and China met today in London, and President Trump seems to think that there is a deal on the table there. So we're going to look at that and see what we make of it there. Then we've got a conversation with the business rescue practitioner that was handling the Mango business rescue process. That, of course, is still underway, and as it stands at the moment, Mango remains a subsidiary of South African Airways. South African Airways giving us a press release, or rather a statement today as the stakeholder in that case, saying that Mango does remain under their brand and under their umbrella as a business. We're going to get a sense of what it means for Mango now. Do we finally have Mango Airlines back? Do we finally see a sale of Mango? This is something that's been very, very quiet from a state-owned entity perspective, so we're going to take a look at this and see if we can get some answers around that. Then we've got a conversation with the team at the GSMA around the digital divide that exists on the African continent and how to bridge that gap. And then we're going to wrap up the show with our Executive Lounge feature. We're going to be chatting to the chair of Mulilo Energy, who also is the former Chief Operating Officer at Eskom, Jan Oberholzer, to take a look at what it is that he gets up to now that he's left the big parastatal and what he enjoys doing in his downtime. Before we get to all of that, markets have had a better day today. If we are looking at the equity markets, by and large, they were in the green. The SA markets, not so much, but if we look at international markets, the only international market that finished in the red was the CAC 40 in France, which was down about 0.1%. The biggest gainer in Asian markets was the Hang Seng, up 0.8% or so, and the biggest gain at the moment in terms of US markets is the Nasdaq, slightly higher than the S&P 500. Our own local markets, as I said, didn't have the best day. The all-share down 0.25%, the top 40 down 0.4%. Financials are leading that down swing in financials leading that downward move, down about 1.3%. Industrials up about 0.03%, so 3 basis points up there. The Rand, 17 Rand 71 against the US dollar. 1 British pound is 24 Rand and 1 cent, €1, 20 Rand and 35 cents. We'll be back a little later on to take a look at these and other movements. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Okay, perfect. 6 to 7. It's all about the SAFM markets update and then sport following that.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
13 Southern African nations and North African guests, Morocco, will battle it out for the ultimate glory in the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025 in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. Catch the beautiful game on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 from 4 to 15 June. Stay tuned to SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Mzansi, Walala Wasala. Play Lotto, Lotto Plus 1 and Lotto Plus 2 for a staggering 97 million rand in total estimated jackpots this Wednesday, and you could win big. Play Lotto for an estimated 70 million rand, Lotto Plus 1 for 16 million rand, and Lotto Plus 2 for 11 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
The Morning Brief.
Just your overall reaction to this
guilty plea that has been entered into by Sibusiso Ngwenga, where he gives a bit more detail, including names of people that he worked with and people that he says, allegedly at this point, the ones who commissioned this murder.
We haven't reached where we're supposed to reach. Other people are supposed to face charges. But the most important thing that we've always been maintaining over the years is that we're not interested more on the people that pulled the trigger and the middleman. We're more interested in the political gangsters that organize the whole thing. The state agents who used the state money to assassinate, and the state agents were involved in preparing the firearm and in making sure that the whole thing was being covered up.
That's Tabiso Zulu.
Tulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief.
Now you can apply online for ABSA Ultimate Banking with 34 benefits, and you can do that while listening to the show. This is what ultimate success looks like. It's getting your daughter the ballet shoes you promised, or maybe the cricket shoes, considering watching South Africa in the cricket finals, aren't they? Thanks to a 2,000 Rand balance booster, while Ultimate Goals is living life on your own terms with a 0 monthly fee credit card, ABSA Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rands per month. Your story matters. ABSA. Subject to affordability and scoring, benefits may be subject to limitations. Terms and conditions apply. ABSA is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Right, let's pick out some of your calls here on the National Pulse, because you're on the Pulse, aren't you? Vuyiswa, you're on the Pulse from Parktown North. Go for it.
Yes, thanks, Ashraf, for taking my call. I just want to comment on the national dialogue.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't think this thing is going to work, because some of the people that are in the panel or in that group, they've been there for quite a long time. They've been all over, you know, and some of them are aging. With this aging age phenomena, also, you can even hear when what is it? Her name? Gandhi. She's advanced in age. Besides that, most of those people there, except the police and them, they've benefited a lot. These things happened under their nose.
Okay, so I got that you're saying they've actually been there, done that. What difference
and they've
can they make?
excluded a lot of people that they need to. There's no traditional leaders there.
Okay, I'm looking for like young people below.
Where's
35.
Amakosi? Where's Amakosi there? Where's the artist, cultural activists? There's nothing. They haven't.
I think there was one that they asked, and they're still waiting for an answer. But the rest, I agree, they all one or two religious leaders, and that's it. Okay, well, thank you for that comment. Let's get to Kandisa in Matlosana, putting your region on the map when you call in.
Afternoon, Afwash. How are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. Right, what's your point?
Look, man, Afwash, we need this national dialogue.
Yeah.
But I have a problem with appointed people. And I ask myself, why president don't allow us, because we are the participants in this process of the national dialogue. Why the president don't allow us to nominate or to recommend to him as president to say, we have these people and they are capable to can lead this national dialogue. You see, Afwash, this thing of people who are being appointed, we don't get even results of everything that we want our country to be like it's supposed to be.
All right, thank you for that.
You know what is problem here, Afwash?
Yeah.
We have been appointing a lot of people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
We never get any report or to say yes, way forward.
Okay, I hear you. I don't think we can say we never get any reports. You can say whether we're doing anything with the reports. Kandisa, thanks for that call. Let's get to Imbongeni in Annandale. Hello.
Oh, thank you, my brother. Good evening to you.
Thank you indeed. Right. Go for it.
I'm just reporting based on the fact that it's not easy to get into Tula's show in the morning, because we gave him a mandatory to say that he have to call back Steve Mabona on the show regarding the food nutrition tender for small business. This has been held up since 2021. So we are very concerned. Even this year, it is not there. It has been cancelled, and he never came back on the show, Steve Mabona. So I'm begging you, as one of the best presenters in this country, Asra, to call him to the show, because people were concerned, and this is not fitting us very well as a small business. So, in other words, please do so, or either way communicate with Tulas that he must call Steve Mabona. We're still waiting since last month.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for the one of the best presenters. But let me tell you, a presenter is like a player; is only as good as his team. And yeah, I'm the playmaker. But we have a coaching team, which is Keys, Temba, and Rusani. We make it all happen here on the National Pulse. In terms of what they do in the morning, I really can't speak on their behalf. But what I can do is certainly get Temba and Keys to make a note of what you said and see if we can follow up on some of the issues you've raised and whether we can, in fact, get Steve Mabona's comments. That's the best I can do. Thanks for that, Imongeni in Annandale. That's sort of south of Joburg, right? Right, Will Bank, what's your comment?
Good evening, Ashraf. This is Makwara Shiazo from Toyambo. You know what, Ashraf? Why do we have to borrow money from the World Bank, which is mainly owned by Western countries? You know, because that loans will come with a lot of conditions, as these nations will try to dictate us. Because South Africa is a member of BRICS nation. Why can't we borrow money from the BRICS banks, which is a new development bank? I don't know why.
I wonder. I'll leave that question mark for all of us to answer. You know, is your point valid?
Ashraf, good afternoon to you and SAFM listeners. I love Parliament sometimes. Yeah, it can get humorous. The quote of the day, sir: as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens the countenance of his friend. Man, Proverbs 27 verse 17. South Africa, you can rock sometimes, even at the lowest of times.
You can rock sometimes, even at the lowest of times. Got that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Mkoslo in Durban. From this national dialogue, we want the ANC and the DA out of power, or else they should leave KZN alone, since we know that the majority of the votes went to the MK. KZN belongs to MK. Thank you. Tsembinkosi in Durban.
Thanks for that, Tsembinkosi. But I don't think the purpose of the national dialogue is to decide to vote out parties from power, because that's what you call an election. Anyway, I'm just saying, think about it.
Hi, Ashraf, and lovely South Africans and your team as well. It's Eddie from Ordinary Stress. You know, every time when I hear your guest, hey, I'll have to make sure that I must sit well. Because sometimes he has this deep criticism to the current statistician, as if he never was in that position. Unless maybe if he wants to lend a hand, people are pushing him back, because I'll also do the same if I want to assist in building the country and people are pushing me back. But sometimes it's so deep, criticism that he uses as if he's an angry man.
Well, he certainly was angry today. But I mean, just to be fair, and I stay to be corrected in case I missed something, not just today, but every other day. I think I haven't heard him being critical of Stats SA and the Statistician General. No, I think he has been critical of government, including the president, of its inability to act upon the data provided by the Statistician General. He's saying they don't use the data. Then when he gave the example today about Capitec CEO, and then he said again, Park Stow clearly doesn't understand the data. How does he just agree with someone? If he goes back to the data, which is Stats SA's, then why are they not listening? So in fact, if you listen carefully, I think he's actually supportive of the current Stats SA, but not supportive of the leadership of government in terms of implementation.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Rana from Durban. You know, Ashraf, this dialogue or these 30 people who are chosen by the president, it's a farce. We will end up like how we ended up with the CODESA negotiations, where we saw new people whom we never knew from the struggle becoming chief negotiators. All these 30 people, if any one of them can tell me when last they went to any township or any informal settlement without bodyguards, and then perhaps they can speak for all the people in the ground. They can't speak for us. They don't even know anything about the people on the ground. They live in fence houses here in the suburbs.
Well, that can apply to just about every politician, isn't it?
Hi, Ashraf. Errol from Durban here. You know, Malema and the EFF are against the people in this dialogue because none of them were selected. Malema or any of his EFF members. That's what I could be wrong, but that's my take. Errol, Durban.
But Errol, I could be wrong too, but I don't think there's any other political party leadership elected or appointed to that. That means there could be supporters of parties, but not actual members of parties. So here's some other quick comments. Tax Ashraf, when it comes to statistics given by our government, they will always give wrong information about unemployment because they count learnership and self-employment as a job. From Brian Mabaya from Project Glen. Instead of answering questions, your guest is using a race card. While we see unemployment is great in the rural areas where the unemployed can be employed to fix the unfixed roads in rural areas, coming from Madoda. How do we know the intent of Capitec CEO, assuming that there is ill intent, lying versus misinformed? Marius in George. I agree with you, Marius. We don't really quite know. And here's another Ashraf. We could argue the same for netball. Why not merge basketball and netball so that it becomes a bigger sport with both male and female stars? From Jen in Cape Town, referring to some of the issues we've raised around, I think cricket by and large. Okay, I think I'd like to go into extra time, but unfortunately the time is up, isn't it? So we're going to have to leave it at that. We'll do it again tomorrow, but you know, the National Pulse as a concept continues throughout the day, 24/7. So I tell you what, if you find something on social media throughout the day, even now after the show, just use the hashtag The National Pulse, tag SFM Radio, tag myself, and we could still share it even if it's 11 o'clock at night. And don't forget, the podcasts are all available. We've tweeted out, but also they're available on our website, safm.coza. Just check out The National Pulse, and all the podcasts are available. Listen, thanks for listening. You're on the pulse when you listen to The National Pulse. Here's the news. Here's Greg Gross.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Parliament passes the fiscal framework and scores die in Eastern Cape storms. Good evening. The National Assembly's passed the fiscal framework and revenue proposals with